Here we go. It says excellent connection. All right, I'm seeing some stuff on the screen here. I think
Hey, there we go.
I think we are officially live. Yes, welcome everybody. We are officially live. Whew, man, I was scared there for a second. I thought this would never work, but it is working. I forgot the restream key. My name is Lev Polyakov. I forgot the restream key. And welcome everybody to another great edition of the BTR stream. And I am currently hearing myself talk, which is another one of those things that I forgot to do. Here we go. I pressed the pause button and I am not hearing myself talk anymore. And that is a big relief. So everybody's here. Welcome to the people. Wong Kar-wai Superfan XOXOXO says, you sound really different, Lev. Uh-oh. I mean, I don't know. Like, guys, how do I sound to you? Do I sound bad? Do I sound good? Do I sound healthy?
You sound fine.
I sound in good spirits, right? Okay.
You sound excellent, man.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, we have a great panel for everybody here tonight. We have my friend Joe Strike. We go all the way back to the New York animation community. We were at the Kids Screen Summit with a lot of these stuffy animation execs. And we have Norf Dog for the first time. Welcome the great Norf Dog. I know we
What's
had a
up,
lot.
Everybody.
I know we got a lot of Norf Dog fans over here waiting. So here, Norf Dog.
Gang
is,
shit.
Yes.
Oh, can
exactly.
I cuss? I'm sorry. Can I cuss?
Of course, yes. We're not.
Okay, fuck yeah.
We're not monetized yet. Well, what are you talking about? We're getting like 22 people right now. Anyway, next we have Maru. So Maru, you are a friend of Norf Dogs.
Yes,
welcome,
longtime friend.
Welcome, Maru. Great to see you. And,
Thank you very much.
And next we have Rin Aldrin. Welcome, Rin, the sly-looking blue fox against the background of some video game that I'm not aware of.
It's Iron Harvest, and hiya.
Nice.
There's probably not a lot of my fans out there, but what's up?
What's up? And we have Vincent Void. Welcome, Vincent, a longtime BTR member, I guess. I don't know what the right word to say here is, but Vincent. Guest, yes. Guest, Night at the Round Table. Welcome, Vincent. So,
thank you.
So let's just get right down to it. And, well, let me ask you about yourselves first. So you guys all are, except for Vincent, who I guess you're furry tangential because you have an avatar of a dog, but you are not a dog man yourself. All of you guys are within, one way or another, the furry culture, for lack of a better word. So let's get started with Joe Strike. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and about your book as well, because you wrote a great book called Furry Nation. I'm going to post a link to it in the chat. And there we go. So let's go from Joe and let's just snake all the way down.
Okay, well, I think they call me a gray muzzle at this point. I've been in the fandom, and I like so many furs. I've been furry before there was furry. When I was writing the book and talking to people and just talking to people in general, almost every fur I've ever met had an interest in anthropomorphism and then discovered there was a fandom, there was a community. And everybody had that I'm not the only one moment. So that's sort of a little background there for starters. But let me see. You ever hear the expression, the kid in the candy store? Because that was me. My folks ran a candy store in Brooklyn when I was a kid, and that was really fun. You know, comic books were my lending library, and watching the cartoons. I was marinated in animation and all the classic stuff, the Looney Tunes, the Fleischer cartoons. They were just on TV all the time. And whenever, Disney stuff came up, I had to see it. Walt had his TV show. A lot of the episodes were built around his animated films. And as basically, one day I got a letter in the mail, 1988, from somebody I didn't know. I opened it up and there was an invitation to something called a furry party. In the 1988 PhilCon, that was like the little East Coast furry community. And it was my I'm not the only one moment. And I just dove in and I've been furry ever since.
Oh my God, that's awesome. You were like one of the original people.
Well,
that's so cool.
I like to say I got in around day 3,
That's awesome.
Sure.
If I had moved out to LA like I was thinking about way back, I probably would have been there at the birth because I would have been going to animation screenings. I would have met up with these people. But yeah, that thing in PhilCon 88, that was the first East Coast furry gathering. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Didn't make it. I was there 89 and from then on.
But you were around when the burn furs and all that stuff was happening.
Oh, yeah. I happen to know the king of the burnt furries, and he would like to pretend he never knew about fur was there. Yeah, if I get to write a sequel, it's going to be called Furry Planet, and there will be a chapter about the burnt furs in it.
What are these bird furs? I don't want to go too much in the tangent right now before introductions, but is there any way you could describe it in a sentence?
Yeah, there are people who thought the furry scene was and the art was getting too sexual. They wanted to clean it up. That's about it.
Interesting.
One of the first controversies, first of many furry controversies.
Yes, controversies. In other words.
Geez.
Oh,
Yes.
geez.
So, North Dog, you're next.
Hi, I'm North Dog. I've been into anthropomorphic animals and animation, that kind of thing, since I was a little kid. Like, I have distinct memories of being like 5 years old, seeing all dogs go to heaven, and being like, "Oh my god, I love these dogs. I want to be a dog." I've been active in the furry fandom since about 2016, when I went to my first convention, which was Midwest Fur Fest, which is where I met the other guest here, Maru. I got my fursuit about a year ago, and that's about it. Like, I've only been active since 2016, so I'm still fairly new to the fandom itself, but I've been lurking ever since I was a small child.
Nice. And Maru.
Hey, I'm Maru. I use she or they pronouns. It's okay if you slip up on those. But yeah, I've always been interested in anthro art. I found out what furry was probably 20 years ago, probably somewhere in there, long time ago. It was, there was a lot of negative connotation associated with that. So it took until about 2016 for me to get out and start going to events, meeting people, going to conventions. But yeah, I'm a musician, composer. I've done music for furry related stuff and non-furry related stuff on a professional level for a while now.
Cool.
Yeah, living the dream.
Excellent. And Rin.
Hi, I'm Rick, and I think I got into the furry community mainly in high school, which was, oh God, how long ago was that? Almost 10 years ago. And yeah, went from there reading about it online, then eventually going to meetups and stuff. And I got my fursuit back in, oh God, it was somewhere early 2010 ends. Yeah.
Excellent.
And I sort of do everything. I edit videos. I dabble in audio, photoshopping. I had my hand at game design a few times. Yeah.
Nice. What kind of games did you design or were interested in trying out designing?
Let's see here. Well, recently one of my projects was just an experiment to see how it would go, but essentially I wanted to create a system to where it would like I used a school as the main setting, and it would create a bunch of AIs and then dynamically create all the relationships between them.
Wow.
And like it's like, okay, this one goes to that class, this one goes to that class.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Vincent Void, I know you're not a furry per se, but you do have furry friends, and you picked an anthropomorphic dog as your avatar with 3 strange-looking eyes around them. So can you talk a little bit about your relation to the furry community at large? And also, for all the new people coming in here, subscribe. We're going to grow thanks to your help. We are the greatest, most underrated YouTube stream of all time. YouTube stream
Gotta
channel
smash
of
that
all
sub
time.
button.
Yes, smash that sub button. Smash that
Ring
like
that
button.
bell.
Yes, you got to break the bell, just like the Liberty Bell. It's got to look like the Liberty Bell once we're through here. So
Use both paws when you smash that button. You gotta do
exactly,
it.
exactly. So Vincent,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I really just modeled my little character after these Korean mascots. There's this platform called Kakao Talk or Katalk. If you're I don't know, like if you're a foreigner, you would know these apps are like WeChat. I don't know what the American equivalent is. Like Line. Do you guys use Line? Maybe.
no, I used to have a girlfriend from Beijing, and we used WeChat with her, so I'm very familiar with WeChat.
Yeah. So it's similar to that, like a sort of messaging app, and they have like these little mascots. And I was doing my own little edgy variation of that style of mascots. it is definitely, I guess, like furry adjacent if you think about it, because it is an anthropomorphic dog and it does represent me to some extent. But I really just modeled it after those dogs, and it's really modeled after my own dog, which is a white Shih Tzu.
Oh.
But I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be honest, Lev. You know, I'm not a furry, and I have some pretty bad history with furries, actually.
That's fine. No, this is even though we're respectful here, this is a spill the tea type of show where people can be very honest about themselves and just how things are going in the world. By the way, thank you so much, Thomas Doeby, for subscribing. I really appreciate that. And
Hey, that's my dude. Another
yeah.
fellow fursuiter there.
Excellent. So my own history, just so you know, is one day I was in the school, the classroom of the Catholic school I was going to, and there were coloring books. I picked up a coloring book, and it was How to Draw Sonic the Hedgehog, for all of you people who remember that one. And I saw this chipmunk girl, Princess Sally Acorn. It's like, holy shit. See, this is the indoctrination pipeline. This is where it starts. They slip these coloring books in, and then all of a sudden we see this really sexual-looking ground squirrel, and next thing you know, I mean, we know what happens next. So anyway,
Next thing you know, the kids are wearing the fursuits and they're going to the conventions.
And then bestiality.
Wow, we got there a lot sooner than I thought we would.
yes. No, I mean, look, let's not hide the fact, like, these things are in the minds of a lot of people, but I do find that so many, like, reading your book, by the way, Joe, when it talked about all these media people that were saying, like, oh, they must have had, like, a tragic incident with Scooby-Doo growing up. It's like, it's just so normie, it's just so normie tier, so bland, this kind of thing. Like, I want to go really deep when it comes to the knowledge of how all these different things are connected. Why is it that people do have attractions towards these ground squirrels that, like, they don't look like ground squirrels. Ground squirrels are gross. I mean, they're kind of cute from afar. You got little beady eyes, but then when you get close up to a ground squirrel, it's got, like, drool. It's got, like, all kinds of weird things that are going on. Like, I don't know, maybe some people are into that, but it's like there is a certain ideal form, like a Plato's theory of forms, that I think comes into the equation, not just for furries, but for anime, for, like, why all these anime VTubers are so popular today, where you have this idealized form that people are able to resonate with. And what exactly that says about us as a society today, like, I really want to get in on that as well. But to start this off, like, Joe, what was your experience with the media just talking about the furries, other than the stuff that I mentioned? Like, would you say I'm pretty close to describing how the media is in relation to it?
I'd say more like how media was, way back when we were first showing up on the cultural radar screen. Most of the reactions were like you were talking about. I sent you a picture of a TV Guide page, which has an ad for the infamous CSI episode. I don't know if I sent you a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was like really a black mark against us for years. I would mention that, and that was on 2003, and a lot of people still remember that as furry. And there was also the Vanity Fair story. I think I sent you that cover also. People have this cliche because of the sexual aspect of a lot of the furry art. People have this cliche, this misapprehension that that's what the fandom, that's what the furry community is all about. And, I have to say, of course, there's going to be a sexual element to furry because animals represent our physical selves. Animals represent so much in our minds, but they represent our physical selves, and that includes our sexual selves. And I really didn't think I'd be talking about that this much this early in the podcast.
No, I think it's good. I think it's good to get it out of the way. It is on people's minds. So I really appreciate that you are talking about it, because sex is a very important part of life. I guess the question is more, and I think we're going to get much more into it. Here's the CSI cover, by the way. Okay, this computer says restarting in 2948. Don't worry, this is my laptop, but that is ridiculous. I hate when Windows does that. But anyway, to the point that I'm getting to here is that sexuality is a part of all of us. The question, though, is what is even sexuality? What is the sexual energy, this Shakti that the Hindu yogis refer to, and what exactly can be accomplished with it? This has been the subject of a lot of different mystery schools, the utilization of a lot of the sexual energy, and to what ends. So, as far as the general creative process goes of furry-dom, like, where do you see the connections? And this, I think, I can start with Maru because North Doc told me that you are more proficient in the connection between a lot of these anthropomorphic mystery school cults that existed back in the day and the furry culture today. So I was wondering if you can speak a bit about that.
Yeah, well, so as far as furry and spirituality goes, I think it's important to recognize that there are cultures that practice spirituality, involving animals and the anthropomorphization of animals, and I think it's important to recognize that people who use things like the term spirit animal, who point to things from different cultures that are not their own, that is cultural appropriation, and it's something that many of us in the furry community do. That doesn't mean there aren't aspects of spirituality for people in the way that they experience the furry fandom and stuff. But I think it's important that people recognize that picking and choosing things from other people's cultures and knowing a little bit about them and saying that that's why you have a persona is not not why
It's
going
it's
here.
interesting that you mentioned that because if you look at a lot of Native American art pieces, as far as like various tools that they utilized, they bear a striking resemblance to the Freemason get-ups, and I think it's very important to point this out because I am of the belief, and we have Hotep Sophia here, who could also, I believe, talk a little bit about this as well as Geo. I am of the belief that there were civilizations long before we know, like Graham Hancock refers to us as a species with amnesia. And these civilizations were able to utilize the same technology and connect with the same people. So it's not so much a matter, I personally think, of people appropriating something from somebody else, but just like we had the culture of ancient Greece going into Babylon and culturally appropriating a lot of their things as well as vice versa. This is how cultures get created. This is how new cultures form. And this is also something that I see in, like, going back to Native Americans, in there being a primordial culture that influenced them. If we're talking about pre-Clovis culture, people who were able to survive what I believe was a great cataclysm that occurred 11,000 years ago, after which we had to start over. So a lot of the knowledge of sacred geometry, knowledge of how to use sound to, I believe, create the various structures that we still see around there. These are things that I think are present within us. This is something that we can experience through the process of meditation. This is something that we can get to know. So the entire history of culture at large, the Akashic Records, this is the birthright, I think, of every single human being. So to me, there really is no cultural appropriation when it comes to that. So that is the way that I look at it. But let's go to Hotep Sophia. I'm really curious what you think about just what I just said right now as far as cultural appropriation goes and furry culture. Like, I know we're kind of going all over the place, but as far as people picking certain things up from other cultures and putting it into their own, I think that this has been going on for a pretty long time. And as far as furry culture goes, I see similar things happening there. But anyway, Hotep Sophia, glad to have you with us. Let me know what you think.
I think that you're right. I mean, there's a lot of this is one thing that bothers me about African Americans and Black people is that we think everything, everyone's appropriating from us. And so therefore, when you see things in other cultures, it's like, okay, well, that's our thing. That's just not how culture works. It's a meshing. I mean, if you believe that one culture, everyone has their own unique, distinct culture and there's no crossing, then that means you don't really believe in humanity, because it's impossible for me to meet somebody who has a different culture than I do and not find something I like about it and something I want to bring into my own realm. And that's how things have happened. It's a natural evolution. I mean, even if you look at, I'm a sort of a farmer, and if you look at even how plants come about, I mean, you got all these cross strains and stuff like that. It's the same process. You take good things you like from certain strains, you leave certain things out, and then you get, you're always creating something better. So I really am interested to hear this conversation about the whole furry thing, because and this is kind of going, I don't know if you already talked about this, I'm sure not, but I actually was I went to Atlanta must have been 2009, and they were having a convention, and I have a bunch of pictures with people from a convention, like in the costumes and stuff. So I never knew what it was. I was like, oh, those people look so cool. And I always thought about that when putting together costumes and stuff. So I have very little knowledge about the topic specifically, but I'm definitely interested in learning more about it, because I thought it was so cool when I was in Atlanta and I saw all these people in costumes. Of course, I'm in the DC area now, and they have like lots of different cosplay sort of things here now, but I think it's sort of the same thing. You just you take what you see and even in animals and sort of apply it to because that's how you get a lot of the people who do like the leopard prints and all that stuff. I mean, it's the same thing. I don't particularly see a difference, but I know that there are maybe some nuances I don't understand that would cause something like that to people to sort of get a difference. Plus, I think people are way too judgmental. So that's my take on it.
Well, let's talk about those subtle differences. If I look at, let's say, Beastars, for instance, which is this anime that also I would say is pretty furry oriented, like they have, anthropomorphic animals, but it's different in a way. Like the style is, there's something very specific about the way that Japanese depict. By the way, Vincent, you got to stop with the baby furs. I know I'm gonna keep posting Princess Sally. Every baby fur you post.
Oh God!
Every
what am I
baby
doing
fur
here,
you
love?
post.
What am I doing here?
Every baby for your post, I'm gonna post Princess Sally's. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, I have to warn you,
What?
if
Yes.
it keeps going in this direction, I'm going to bail.
Oh,
Okay.
I want you
I'll
to feel.
I'll chill.
Yes. I want you to feel comfortable. I notified everybody in advance. But again, like even something like that, like let people have that interest if they are interested in those kind of things. Like I personally, I don't know about you guys, but I personally don't care. No, it's true. Because it's like I think we're at a point right now where we have all
Christ.
these. No. We're at a point right now where we have all these isolated communities that I think have been kind of reinforced by the fact that people don't really go out and talk with the different communities. This is partly why we're doing this very dynamic stream. And I understand that it is kind of going out of one's comfort zone because we're not in a furry community here. There are people here who are not furries. There are people here at the same time, though, who, like Hotep Sophia, for instance, who are very curious about what exactly is going on here. And I would definitely... I definitely think that first of all, it's worth giving a big hand to North Dog and Maru and Joe Strike and Rin for being here and coming out of their comfort zone. And I think it is really important for all of us to reach out. So please show them all the support that you can, because this, I think, is one of the most important things right now, especially when we have the Mark of the Beast AI system trying to isolate us even further and putting us into our imaginary dream zones where we're not going to be able to have contact with the rest of the human race. So this
the gangster communist computer god left.
Exactly.
As Francis E. Deck says.
Yes, this is why this is extremely important for us to make this connection, especially for yourself, Joe, because I read your book. I think it's an absolutely wonderful book, and this is why I think that this kind of connection with people that you normally wouldn't really talk to is extremely important. So anyway, I want to talk about the subtleties when it comes to furry-dom versus, let's say, the Japanese depiction of the Beastars that I was talking about earlier, or let's say cat girls, for instance, that you would have in Japan. Like, what exactly are these subtle differences? Like, I see it maybe in more of a Disney-fied style that the U.S. does, going all the way back from Disney's Robin Hood. But where would you say the differences are? And let's start with North Dog.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
I'm looking in the chat here.
Oh God. Okay. Yes. The question is, what do you see as the subtle differences between how the Japanese would depict furries, for lack of a better word, in Beastars versus the American style that you see present in a lot of fursuits, like the fursuit you're wearing, for instance? It's heavily influenced, I think, by a lot of this Primordial Robin Hood type of style that goes back to Disney's Nine Old Men and all of that. Like there seems to be a primordial nature to a lot of these things that people have been kind of going with in a lot of the furry conventions, as opposed to, let's say, Joe's design, which is more of like a scaly. I'm not really sure what the inspiration for that would be, and we're going to find out soon. But North Dog, let me know about how you see these subtle differences at play and what you think is going on with the origin of the particular furry style that you employ in your fursuit.
I'm gonna be completely real with you. I don't fucking know what you're talking about. I like fursuits. I think fursuits are cute. I got my fursuit because I have what I consider to be a cute character. I don't really know too much about the Japanese furry culture, so I'm not gonna pretend to know anything about that. Like cat girls or anything along those lines.
Well, then let's speak about that, though. The attraction. What is it that got you into furry-dom and that keeps you attracted to this very particular style? If you can define it in like a short amount of words or phrases.
Sure. Like I said, I've been into anthros pretty much my whole life, ever since I was a small child. I saw my first fursuit, probably like 2014 or so is like the first time I saw like a video of someone wearing a fursuit, just like going around being a fursuiter. And I knew like right then, okay, I really like this. I want to get in on this. And it kind of took off from there. After that, like a couple of years later, I lurked harder into the furry fandom and went to my first convention where I saw fursuits like up close and personal. And that just drove it home even more. So I saved up a whole bunch of money and I got my fursuit, and I'm really happy with it. That's about it. Like I've just been into it my whole life, pretty much.
What is the feeling that you get when you are in the fursuit?
Hot.
Yeah.
Very hot.
Heat
I'm
is
gonna
a big one.
take a drink of water right now.
Good idea.
Not necessarily arousal, I hope.
So I don't know. I feel a connection with the character whenever I put on the suit. Like I feel like I'm not really myself anymore. I can be more outgoing. I can be more adventurous. I feel more open to talk to people I don't know. Like say for example at furry conventions. Like if I'm walking around and I'm not in my fursuit, I'm really reserved and keeping to myself. But when I put on the fursuit, I'm all over the place. I'm making all kinds of new friends. I'm talking to everybody, just spreading all kinds of good vibes. And it's generally, it's generally just very, very positive interactions with people in the fursuit, and that really adds fuel to the fire that I have inside.
Interesting. I'm glad that you went with the adds fuel to the fire that you have inside, because that does go back to Kundalini. And something that I've been very, like, how many of you guys know about Kundalini, by the way? Show of hands.
My hand is raised virtually.
Okay, yes, you can actually press a hand-raising button in Zoom, I believe, somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it is. But anyway, to the point that I'm getting to here, when it comes to this inner fire, I think it helps people representing themselves as like in the kind of fashion that they wear, if they like wigs, if they like, like think of all the beautiful fashions we had back in the medieval times, that we had back in the Victorian times. Like people wanted to put on a show when they went outside. They wanted it to be a sensory experience, not just in the architecture that was based on sacred geometry and a lot of other things that I think we kind of threw in the trash since we have all these so-called experts. Yes.
I think you could see that even now, because what he described sounded to me like if I was getting ready to perform, I would put on a performance persona and really get into that character of whatever it is I'm about to perform and go out on the stage. Like, there's a lot of artists who have these whole personas they put on. The one I can think of the quickest is like Beyonce and her whole Sasha Fierce. Like she puts on this persona and she goes out on the stage and she does her thing. And I think that's what it sounds like to me. Like you're able to take on qualities that you wouldn't necessarily normally have and really, really like focus on making people happy or, like creating an enjoyable experience for the people who actually get to interact with you. And I think that's one of the things I do like, because there's a lot of people out here who don't care one iota about how anybody feels and how they come off to anybody. And so they're never looking at how can I make people feel comfortable? How can I make people happy? And I that's what I get from what I see. I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs again, but that's what it seems like to me.
I agree. And yeah.
So like animal becomings, as Deleuze and Guattari says.
Well, what is even an animal? An animal is an exaggerated spiritual form based on the environment that it's in. So a fish would look a certain way because they're living in an area that would be, you know, the proper area for that kind of fish to evolve. Same thing with any other animals. Like, the environment makes the animal, and I think the environment makes the urban animal too. We get certain vibes like the squirrels, the pigeons, they feel like very urban kind of animals. And when it comes to furry-dom and just costuming in general, like, it does feel to me like there is a spiritual dimension to it even in the modern era, where if you do feel like there is something inside of you, like some kind of a, like, let's say you have a stand, for instance, for all the JoJo fans out there. A stand is this spiritual form that, yes, a stand is a spiritual form that may not necessarily look like you as the person, but it is something within you. I was recently watching Diamond is Unbreakable. I just started getting into that one. Really good series, although I think I still like Stardust Crusaders more. Anyway, in that Diamond is Unbreakable, they had an episode where they were chasing down two rats, and these rats, they had their own stands, and they looked nothing like the rats. It was just like this tank with this gun that fired rockets and a little seat that I believe the rat was supposed to sit in, but the rat was never sitting in that seat for some weird reason. But anyway, the point that I'm getting to here is I believe that there is such a thing as the astral realm. I believe that we are more than just what we present ourselves here. At the same time, though, I'm very interested in what exactly can we do to make the most of our time here where we wouldn't be able to still lose track of certain attributes that we were given through, like, I don't know if you guys believe in reincarnation or not, but when it comes to the kind of form that you have as a human being too, like the face that you have, the expressions that you have, all these things I think convey your soul. And, you know, like, you see certain people, they have very angry expressions all the time. Like, you can kind of see it, like, they're assholes. They're going to look like assholes. But then, and hopefully I'm...
Their physiognomy,
yes.
love?
Yes,
physiognomy?
exactly. So the reason why I mention this...
Curious.
Yes, well, the reason why I mention this is because my only concern, and I would love for everybody to talk about this, is that when you have a certain model based on, like, a... paradigm derived from Disney, for instance, like Robin Hood. Again, like there's a certain face. How much is that going to be an external influence upon the character of the person as opposed to something that they would be able to derive from more of a... Like, that's an interesting style over here. I don't know who did that, but like, that's not as much of a Disney style that Vincent posted right now. Like, that seems to be in a lot of art. Like, I am seeing differentiations, but there are still, like, groups of people that do go with the same Disney thing. And I'm thinking, like, what exactly does that tell us about how people's minds work as far as identity? That a lot of people do end up going into this more of Disney's Robin Hood kind of like default style of what it means to be a furry. So I don't know who wants to, Maru?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I speak to that?
Sure.
Yeah, so the interesting thing about the furry fandom to me is that it's a group of people brought together over a shared aesthetic of anthropomorphism. And it's not like take the brony fandom, for instance. They're brought together because they like a specific show, but there is no centralized work of media here for us. It's just furry. So you have, you know, people from all over the map with different aesthetic flavors that they bring to the table. You know, like in the 90s, there was a lot of like comic book influenced artists, so like Eric Schwartz and Ben Dunn and those folks, and you can really see the evolution after that. You know, they're but what's popular is different, and it is largely based on the popular media of the day. So there's a lot of there's just a really wide breadth of aesthetic that the furry fandom has. Yeah, and like you were talking about before, even the difference between Japanese furry and American furry, like over there they call it kimono, which is like the their branch of furry, basically. It's still like we still get together at the same conventions, but you know, the style of suit, like the kimono style suits, they have like a very distinct flavor as opposed to like the American toony or realistic suits.
Like here,
Is
I
that
posted
spelled
an
differently
example.
than kimono the dress?
Yep, kimono.
Okay.
Not kimono.
So you see over here
Okay, I couldn't tell.
the two difference between.
I see.
Yeah. So yeah, it is interesting. Like looking at this, you can see a lot of this spectral influence of some of the people that were working for Disney at the time when it comes to the first design. And the second design, you see a lot of the anime influence as far as like these much more simplified expressions. And see, this is the thing that I'm really curious about, being somebody who is in animation, why I asked this to Norf Dog. Like I know North Dog, like you don't think about it, like you just see, it's kind of like an instinct for you. Like you know it's good, you know this is something that you want to do, so you go for it. And I could totally respect that. What I am curious about though is kind of getting to the nitty gritty of what exactly is within these forms, or like we have how do I pronounce your name? Asclepian. Did I say that right? Asclepian. Are you there? Can you hear us?
Hold on, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
And you are coming in.
Am I coming through?
Yes,
okay,
you are coming
perfect.
through.
So,
and you are from Serbia.
That is correct. Okay, so to correct the pronunciation, it's Asclepian, but doesn't really matter. You can call me Crow. I'm just to introduce myself briefly.
Yes.
I'm a longtime friend of Gio's.
Hey, how's it going?
We've been going back quite a while, and hold on. I'm having troubles with the internet.
That's okay. Everybody, please subscribe right now. We brought this conversation back into the place that it should be going into, and I really appreciate everybody being here. Go for it.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to start off with this, just to sort of tie into and explain where I'm from. When it comes to this aesthetic, this group, as Maru said, is that I believe firmly that this is something that's Lindy. And in this, I believe that it's something that's inherent to all cultures around the world. We had the Olfendar for the Germanics. We had the spirit animals for the Native Americans. We had the symbolisms of animals throughout mythology all over the world, not just in pagan pantheons, but as well in Christianity and in Islam as well. We can see God come through many different birds and stuff like that. And so my approach to this aesthetic is that it is inherently and naturally imbued in man, and that man is capable of wielding this tool. But only recently have we found rediscovered this tool with which we can and this is what I'm going to slide into, is with this tool we can discover ourselves. It is something that's again, as I said, natural to everyone. So what do I mean when I say discover ourselves? We have different sort of personality tests, the MBTI, the 4 personalities, the choleric, sanguine, etc. And these are only what should I call it? These are standardized ways, they're cut and dry ways of understanding ourselves. And I think what this aesthetic here offers us is a more visual way of approaching how we understand ourselves. So there's we can put our character into another character, what this group calls a persona, which is furry persona, and through that we can use this tool for introspection. And again, putting on to what Maru said, it's not standardized, so it's highly personal, but there are inherent and perennial values for each animal, and each animal symbolizes something. So that's a bit it's a bit rocky of an introduction, but I just kind of had to write it down on a paper. So I hope that I have piqued the interest of Gio, who didn't sound very interested in this.
Yeah, I think he's really onto something, that animals represent something to our minds that's always been there. Lev, can you pull up? I sent you a picture of like a wooden statue.
Yes, I see the statue. 1 second.
Yeah.
Oh, the wolf of there's a really ancient one. Is that what you're referring to?
It's actually a lion man, and it goes back about 35 to 45,000 years ago. It's the oldest existing piece of artwork, and it's of an anthropomorphic character.
Here
And
it
I
is.
think I think you really onto something. Yeah, there we go. Animals, and way back in the old days, people worshipped animals. They had a spiritual connotation. And nowadays, animals have been denatured. They're mascots. You see them in the sports stadiums. You see them on the sidelines. You see them in commercials. You see them in the kiddie cartoons. And I think one thing about furs is that we've recaptured that spiritual element. Maybe it's not spiritual, but it's something I really believe is hardwired into the human mind, that we want to see animals on a closer footing to us. We don't, the distance between us and the animal world is a little too far. It leaves us isolated, and we need to get back in touch with that, even if it's through a fursona, even if it's through a cartoony looking fursuit. And I think, that's really important. It connects us with something that's really been lost in this modern rational age, or age where most religions are very formal, and they lost that relation to the animal. I think that's really important.
Can I jump off on that? And
Go for
what
it.
yeah. And what my friend Isan said, I think is fascinating. Now, barring my anti-furryism aside, I will try to be as nice as I can be. I think
Please.
that I think that to me, there's certainly an archetypal and spiritual element into, at least in part, the intangible nature of what furryism is trying to get at. But I think that, we talked about this before, and I'm sure we'll get into this, because that's sort of like the elephant in the room with whether it's a sort of, is it a real identity or is it a paraphilia? And that's sort of like a contentious issue. But to sort of hone in on the mythological aspect of it, in some ways you could say that the fursona is a modern sort of cartoony appropriation of something that was once perennial within the human spirit in relation to animality. And what Mr. Joe Strike is saying is very similar to what a lot of academics nowadays call critical animal studies, which is the human in relation to the non-human animal. And of course, this comes from what I mentioned before, which is Deleuze and Guattari's book, Thousand Plateaus, where they talk about becoming animal, and they talk about the Armadidian shaman, what's his name, who wrote Don Juan. You know, Lev.
Oh, well.
Carlos
no.
Castaneda.
Yes, Carlos Castaneda. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but the difference
Anytime.
between, so they talk about animal becomings starting from what they call the median point, which is resisting a hierarchy and more towards a multiplicity or an assemblage of being. So this is very complicated stuff, but essentially they're not talking about like legit, like humans becoming animals or anthropomorphism as such, but they're talking about this in-between stage between the human and the non-human animal, and how sort of the animal is a representation of a multiplicity or a pack as opposed to a hierarchical organization. And this applies to many different things. And this is why indigenous systems of spirituality always embodied certain animalistic forces, because they were more connected to a primordial wholeness rather than the separation of humanity from nature through, reason and discernment and so forth. And I think that in some ways, to be more generous, furryism is like this modern, like individualist atomized appropriation of trying to get at something deeper and more meaningful and more perennial. But at the same time, I can't help but sort of see why furries sort of have this stereotype, whether it's warranted or not, of basically indulging in some sort of weird paraphilia, whereas anime tends not to. Well, anime is polarizing, but I think that anime is different in that it's sort of like, to me, it seems that a lot of furry stuff is very Western in scope, whereas anime sort of resists a lot of Western cultural and political categories. So a lot of people, there's like a sort of I notice a bit more of a diversity among anime people in terms of their beliefs, whereas furries get stereotyped or pigeonholed as like being like very involved with like certain modernist political and cultural ways of viewing things. I don't know if that's correct, but I don't know. It's really, I'm
Definitely
curious.
correct.
Well, I tell you,
like
I've never heard furry described as furryism before. It makes it sound like a religion.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm curious about this relation. Like, what makes the furry tick? Like, what? Like, I think it would be sort of like cheap of me to say that like it's just escapism or it just has a sexual like paraphilia. Like, what is it? Is it truly something that's trying to grasp at an intangible, or is it really just like, I don't know, people like it's fun to dress up? I don't know.
Can I speak to that?
Go for it.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
So I think there is something really special about having a persona. A lot of us have sort of aspirational personas that are sort of idealized celebrations of a combination of things that we like about ourselves and things that we would like to be. I know that I personally was able to pursue hormone therapy because I know people who drew my persona in a more feminine form, and it's a way that I had not been brave enough to imagine myself. I hadn't given myself that mental space until artists were able to help me see that. So that's kind of just an example. There are people who have, muscular personas, and through that they have decided to change themselves. I think the experience of like having your own avatar can be very transformative, and that's definitely like an aspect of what makes the furry culture.
So would you say that it's maybe a true observation that there seems to be a connection between the furry fandom and like more, what would you say, like Western liberal politics than as opposed to anime, where anime seems to be like on the fringes? Like there's communist anime people, there's like very far right anime people.
I would say that has to do more with internet culture than it does to do with furry culture specifically, but also it's the furry culture is phenomenally, it's a queer space. So a lot of I would say that a lot of us have faced oppression, and so anti-oppression politics are very big in the forefront of people's minds when they practice furryism, as as you would put it.
No, when you mean queer, you don't mean just like the sexual orientation, but you mean more of the academic like queering of like the weird and eerie, to quote Fisher. Like you mean that more?
I mean the LGBTQIA community. It's pretty ingrained within the furry culture, and which isn't to say that that every furry is gay, bisexual, queer. There are several like cishet furries who are just as valid as the rest of us, of course. But
within that community, I think the point that Gio is getting to, if I'm correct, Gio, is that within that community, if you were to branch off into particular interests that people would have, would it be the academic interests, or would it be the more sexual oriented interests? And if it's neither, what would the interest be defined as?
So there's no it's hard to generalize, because really the thing that brings us all together is the aesthetic, and it is a lifestyle in that we all participate in this together, but there's no it's such a broad and diverse group of people that there really is no one way to say that, like of course people experience furry through their sexuality, and of course people experience it academically, but there's no, it would be irresponsible, I would say, for me to say like one or the other is more prevalent and one or the other is more like acceptable or whatever.
Okay, I have a question. So does the whole furry lifestyle then allow you to not have to be identified by gender so much, whereas you don't have to, or are the characters, do they have gender? Like, I mean, because another question I wanted to ask is, are the suits pre-designed, or do you design them yourselves? Like, or like, how do the actual suits come about? And then also, does the using of the suits allow you to sort of eliminate this whole gender thing? Because that is a real problem for a lot of people, because you do get treated differently based on your gender, based on how you act, especially in certain spheres. So I can definitely understand if it allows you to get away from that whole sort of thing. But I am curious about like the actual costumage and how it actually comes about.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of suit makers make pre-made suits that people can buy, but I would say it's probably more common for the bigger fursuit makers. You know, you have a lot of people within the fandom who are or make their full-time living off of suits. They do them on a commission basis, so they make them, you know, custom made to order. You know, they work with a client to translate their two-dimensional character into a three-dimensional space, which is pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, there are plenty of trans people who have fursuits that give them a space to present their gender in a way that is more comfortable for them. Unfortunately, you know, like any space, there is a lot of sexism and like a lot of people with male appearing suits. Sorry, we got a dog in the background here. A lot of people with male appearing suits who have people who are not male in the suits or trans men in the suits are viewed as kind of undesirable by some people within the furry fandom, and that's kind of a sad thing that happens. But it's also like definitely a very good space for people to like, you know, play with their gender presentation and stuff like that.
I wanted to introduce just as a aside, the elephant in the room right now, which is the BTR-chat, which I see Norf Dog right now. You, I think, are getting absorbed in that fucking thing way more than is needed. Like I said before, we have people here who are shit posters, and they are going to get at you. Not the panel, not the panel. I would say, like, as you saw before, everybody here, we're really respectful, and we want to talk about these things, you know, very openly, and at the same time ask questions of things that we're curious about. As far as the chat, I'd say this has always been a big thing when it comes to any circle of people that has been kind of enclosed within themselves in a way I understand to protect from any, you know, contrary or any, you know, shit posting that might go on. Because like I said before, it is kind of an unusual thing for people to experience. At the same time, my own personal observation here is that I think the most important thing for anybody is to be able to be anti-fragile when it comes to all that. Because in a way, the energy that I think people give off when they start saying, like, everybody around me is like these, you know, evil cis scum or whatever, that is exactly what fuels the fire, and it acts like a Chinese finger trap, and it keeps perpetuating this same cycle. So this is why my personal recommendation is, like, let them write whatever the hell they want to write. That, you know, you're not really going to be able to do that much about that. But I know that you are a kind person and you are a loving person. That is the energy that I'm getting from you. But this is also something that I think comes to the core of what I wanted to discuss here. There is this old saying, you know, strong men make good times make weak men, weak men make hard times make strong men. And by no means am I saying anybody here is weak. What I am saying is that my concern is that if there is an insulation that happens in any community from any kind of criticism or any shit posting or anything that doesn't really go with the territory, my concern is that that same mentality is something we are seeing in colleges, where people want to completely separate away from any idea that they would find to be offensive. And my concern is that that same quality is going to be echoed in the more elite spaces that the kids who are going to college right now are going to graduate in, and would perpetuate this idea that anybody who has any contrary opinion to me, they're evil, they're going to be canceled, their bank is going to be taken away. Like, Gio, wasn't there a recent story with Mark Collette that HSBC has taken away his ability to do banking?
Yeah, that was bound to happen, though. I mean, yeah, that's unfortunate. But just to jump off from that, I think like a good question would be, you were saying about the Spenglerian cycle of history. Do you think that, like, for the panel, do you think that in some ways the fursona thing is a way of dealing with a form of alienation that comes with modernity? Like,
yes.
Yeah, elaborate on that. If that's an open-ended question, so yeah.
Okay. If it's cool, I'm not a furry.
Vincent, you're answering. Yeah, okay. I'm curious to hear your answer.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry to all the furries. I'm trying to be nice, and I understand that I can come off like a bit of anti-fur, but I'm not. I promise. I just have strong opinions on this because throughout high school, I mean, being Asian and being around like those kinds of people that are into anime and whatever, you end up befriending a lot of, you know, the weird kids, the furries included, and there was the people that I recognized as being a part of the furry fandom at that age, like there was such a clear presence of self-hatred in every aspect of their lives that you just couldn't shy away from it. It was clear that they felt very uncomfortable, not only in their own skin, but with their identity, in their community, with their family. So I had this friend who, you know, I'd known him for like 5 years up to that point before he decided to be a furry one day. And he was, you know, he never had a girlfriend. He never had any like girls even interested in him, and he'd always complain about it. And I guess it was like kind of incelish at the time, you know. Obviously I don't think that that was really a thing back then, but he was really just, you know, the typical archetypal nerd, just undesirable, not very smart. And every day he talked to me and just say like, I hate being this person. I hate my family. My family doesn't like me. They don't respect me. And he just vent to me about it and be like, all right, well, you should do something about it. Like he talked about how much he hated being fat. So I was like, okay, well, lose weight, do something about that. And he'd be like, but I don't think I should have to do that. You know, like I'm comfortable with who I am. And I was like, okay, well then why are you bitching about it? And he was like, because people don't accept me for that, and no girls want me, and blah 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 blah. And
An incel, huh?
yeah, sure. I mean, it. I guess if you want to look at it that way, as for like a 15-year-old, and if you want to call them an incel, then yeah,
Well, if
the
he's upset that
mindset.
like no women are paying attention to him, like it's their fault, then you know maybe yeah, like you were saying, he should take a good look at himself and not just blame women for not being attracted to him.
Yeah, of course. But I'm just saying, like, that's just one of the examples in which this self-hatred kind of manifested
Yeah,
itself.
but Sensei, let me add a little something to that, because that also sounds like a lot of artists I know, just in general, like they have this way of behaving that is extremely it runs counterculture to you know, how people normally are. And if you don't have, in general, as like, I'm a singer, so like I've always run counterculture to most people in my peer group. And so I also remember feeling the same way. And I also remember like not complaining about it, but just saying, well, it is what it is, you know. But that's because I had the ability or the skill set to develop an inner confidence based on my other skills, which were education. So I could excel at education and forget about, you know, what everybody else was saying about how I looked and how I sounded and what I did, how I lived my life. And for me, it was like the opposite. Like I was bigger than everybody else, but I was just more developed than everybody else. So that was a problem. And then I was like super churched out. That was a problem because everybody was drinking and smoking and whatever. And I'm just like, are you guys crazy? I'm not doing that. So I understand that your friend the way that he felt, but if you don't have the ability to do something with that, then you do sort of look for an outlet to put that. But that's a lot. Like I said, that's a lot of artists are like that. You just
That's
don't
what I'm
fit in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's that same sort of alienation that's ubiquitous to a lot of people out there. And I'm just saying that when he chose to be a furry and became like, I guess, like a part of that culture, I noticed a very sharp decline in his self-care and his self-maintenance and his desire to improve himself and his desire to even try and be more sociable or just like understand certain things that would better his life and better him as a person, because he had a community of people who not only enabled him but also like further I guess proliferated his own I guess like unhealthy habits, unhealthy lifestyle decisions and choices, and his own unhealthy.
Yeah, but that sounds like a lot of artists. That literally sounds like a lot of artists.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think they're trying to to say that it's because of that is kind of like, no, I know a lot of artists, like I know like literal artists, like rappers and stuff, the same thing. Like I tell them, look, you need to be out here, or even singers. I'm like, look, I have to go to the gym. I have to, exercise. You have to keep your lung function high. And they'll be like, no, well, such and such sounds, I sound great and I don't need to do anything. And I could just go in the studio and they'll just touch my voice up and whatever. And it's the same thing instead of, or like, oh, I can smoke. My rap lyrics come out better when I smoke. Like, no, like actually you sound stupid, but no one will tell you because you're surrounded by a bunch of people who don't actually care about your well-being. So I think that's literally just like in our education system, we need to like really do something about instilling like self-confidence and, just the ability to be comfortable with oneself without putting someone else down to, make yourself feel better, which sort of like, is what ends up happening, because in order for you to feel good about yourself, then you have to step on somebody along the way. But that's sort of like the industrialization of education has done that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like
sorry. General, that there are a lot of people, the only way they can feel good about themselves is to elevate them. And like you were saying, step on people they can feel inferior to, and they're no good, therefore I'm great. And you see that all over the place. It's a really sad, aspect of the human condition.
So, yeah, I mean, what she's saying is definitely right. I totally agree with you, Sophia. But what I'm saying is the fundamental distinction between like being a furry or being indoctrinated into this furry sort of culture versus like being an artist or being a musician that occupies these kind of like toxic circles is that the furry fandom is almost like, and I'm not trying to make a generalization because obviously I know that it's not that kind of a place for a lot of people, but for a lot of people, it's a place where, they're manipulated into having these sort of, it's an inherently fetishistic community. Like it literally originated from a fetish. Like that's how it started, and that's how a lot of these people started.
I do have to interject.
The culture is so inherently tied to that.
Before we continue falling into this whole, I think that the whole approach is completely wrong. We're talking about a group which is in fact a microcosm of the wider culture around. I don't think that this movement group, I don't think that it started as a fetish. I don't think that it started recently. As I said, it's a much more perennial case. And personally, I believe that we can talk about alienation. We can talk about individual reasons for coming towards this aesthetic. And I'm going to call it an aesthetic because it is a microcosm, a presentation of the world as it is in a smaller groupations. And as Maru said before, it is not standardized in any way, shape, or form. There is subcultures within it. There's people who are going to help. There's people who are going to destroy. This we see even in the world outside of this aesthetic, is that it's not indicative of the group itself, but rather it's indicative of the world around it. And if we keep continuing down this hole of, oh, I've seen bad examples with this aesthetic, I've seen bad examples with this group, we can go on for ages. I've seen good examples with the group and aesthetic. I've seen good examples, good drives. I've seen people who help through this. I've seen countless of charities, and we can go around and talk about positives and negatives and individual examples, but that's not going to lead us anywhere. The way to approach this whole problem, if we're going to call it a problem, is to understand that it is a microcosm placed into animalistic it presented in an animalistic manner, in a more simpler, more primordial manner. So it is much more, the problems of the world around it are much more pronounced, and they pop out much easier because you have a dichotomy of something that's supposed to be neotenous, childish, and clean, and then you have the problems which arise from that, and they're much easier seen. You don't expect someone with a colorful character to be a complete degenerate.
Well, yeah, exactly. But that's the neoteny aspect of it, I think, which turns people off, is that it seems that, in a sense, a lot of this is trying to return to something that is more within the realm of the innocent or childlike. But yet, when you start to get into like sort of another fetishistic connotation, then that's what turns people off, I guess. But then again, I guess like in general, it seems that furries are like really the most you could say the most polarizing group on the internet. Now, I remember the documentary about the furry fandom. I don't think it started off like Vince. I don't think it started off that way. In fact, if I recall, the founder, like, he was very pissed off with people like trying to sexualize them. Like, I think to him it was more so the like relation between cartoon and entertainment.
Well, let me ask
and
Joe,
something else.
because Joe, you wrote a whole book about that. So is that true? What
Well,
Gio
first thing I want to ask is which documentary? There's been like 3 so far.
Oh, the Down the Rabbit Hole one, that one. Yeah.
That makes 4 then. I haven't seen that one. But
Oh no, it's
what do you want to
pretty
ask me?
popular.
I'm sorry, you wanted to ask me something.
Yes,
Hello?
yes. So what I wanted to ask you is, was this creator that Gio was talking about? I mean, we don't have his name right now, so there's not really that much of a way for me to know exactly who it is. But was there an aspect in early furdom of people wanting to stay away from a lot of these more sexual elements and keeping it in a different realm?
I think there were people like that, and I think it's because of the reaction you get from the public that furry is nothing but a kink fest. And that is why people want to sort of push that away. I think it's important to accept it, but accept it in its proportion to the fandom as a whole. The fandom as a whole is people who appreciate anthropomorphism to one degree or another, or in one manner or another. And for some of those people, if it becomes part of their personal private lives or their sexual lives, that's fine, but it should be. Listen, New York Post had an interview with me when the book came out, and the guy was a good interviewer and this and that. I got to talk about the book, but the headline on the interview was "Inside the Furry Fetish." So that's the kind of stuff that I see we're still up against in a lot of ways.
But that sounds a lot like how Black women particularly are characterized, because we get these Meg the Stallions and Cardi B's, and all of a sudden all Black women are like these hypersexualized individuals, when it's something that can't possibly be true. But there's very little way to fight this sort of characterization. And so if that is I can completely relate to that, because it's the same thing. It's like, how can you characterize? I mean, you have these very small group of people who look like this and who act like this, but yet all you see is, strippers are the face of, Black women. I mean, this is just one of these things that I don't even know how. I wish we had an answer for how to get around this, because it's completely insane.
It's easier for people not.
One way to get around that is simply getting to know people.
Right.
There's a part of the brain, the us versus them dichotomy, and our brains, unlike a lot of other animals, we have specific reactions to other members of our species. And if our brains categorize someone as them, we just naturally can't empathize with them. But you talk to them, you get to know them, and that goes away real easily.
And they try to keep people from like having conversations like one like this, which would actually be much more helpful than anything else we see going on, because unless you talk to people, you would never know that, oh, well, their struggle sounds a lot like my struggle. You know what I mean? Like I said, I didn't know anything about them except I'd seen a group when I went to Atlanta almost 10 years ago. That's all I knew. I'm not aware of all of these subsects of internet culture. I don't know how I've managed to stay about it, but Black Twitter is totally different. It's a totally different set of problems. So I never even got involved in any of all of this, even the anime stuff. Like, I'm not super familiar with it to have a judgment on it one way or another, except to say, I know about it. I could ask intelligent questions, but if more people within your group are not pushed, I guess, maybe to have these conversations with people who may be a little bit crass, not us particularly on the panel, but definitely in the chat, then it's kind of hard to, you're just going to base your judgment off of what you see on the internet. And of course, the internet's going to only show the bad side and never show the good side, because immediately when you guys started talking, I'm like, oh, this is just a performance culture, which if you've ever been involved in theater, like that's just how, I mean, this is just, to me, it seems like it's just in the same vein as, and I don't know, I know why it hasn't been, probably because enough people aren't willing to, like, face the potential ridicule and have the conversations, because they are quite difficult to have. I mean, I would say this is not an easy conversation to have in general, especially when you're trying to be extremely respectful of people, but you've seen all of the stuff on the internet. It's much like when I talk to people and they're like, oh, well, Black people commit all these crimes and I'm like, okay, do I look or sound like that? So I totally, I appreciate you guys coming on and having this conversation.
Definitely.
It's been, interesting to me.
No, I appreciate it too, and I do want to say that I know that there has been some pushback right now from some of the conversations that were going on in the chat. As far as the chat goes, I am, as you know, for free speech. I would encourage people to be respectful to people here. I think that the guests that we have right now here, that you guys have been very respectful of the people of the furry community who have come here. So thank you very much for that. As far as the chat, though, like, I am somebody who still believes that regardless of whatever it is that people say, that old expression, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I think that
Unless
since
they're carved in stones and thrown at you.
What?
Unless they're carved in stones and thrown at you.
Exactly. So when it comes to, again, this is the point that I was bringing up before. When it comes to a lot of the communities, there are, let's say, much more protective of people that are on the outside. And when there are certain criticisms, like there are so many comments that were made in the chat. And look, I'm not going to be, Mr. Lev, the teacher, who's going to censor the things that the members of our chat post. Like, unless it's like pornography or something, like, they could post whatever they want, and some of these are going to be bad, but it's like these are still anonymous people who are posting certain criticisms that they may have of these environments, and it's like, I think we should not let any of this get us down, and I think that we should strive to, like Nassim Taleb said, become anti-fragile, become someone for who it wouldn't matter what the hell people are writing on a daily basis, because this is the fucking internet. People are always going to write this stuff, and this is what happens when people come in and there is a clash of ideas. It is like being in an ocean. It's not like being in a pool. So, of course, we are going to get disagreeing opinions, like Vincent had a disagreement that he was voicing, but I think that Vincent was still, other than the baby fur shit before, I think, Vincent, you were being respectful to the people here. But like Joe, I mean, let me know, because this was something that I was very, concerned about maintaining, definitely level of respect and decorum in the Zoom chat itself. Let me know, like, what do you think so far of the experience? Like, I don't normally do this, but I think it is kind of an elephant in the room situation, and I don't want anybody who has been a member of this chat to feel like we're using them in any way. Like, I want people to know that we are here to have a deep conversation, and whatever other things happen to occur during that conversation, as long as it's respectful, let the chat say whatever shitposting things they will. That's the nature of the chat on the internet. So it's like, that's what I gotta say. But Joe, let me know what you think, and then I would love to hear from Mario as well on this.
Well, I think going in too many tangents. I would like to see the conversation more focused on anthropomorphism, what it means to people, not necessarily the furry thing itself, the furry community, but the larger picture of how it fits into the anthropomorphic instinct, which I really feel is hardwired into every person in the world. And it's why it's been part of human consciousness since the beginning of the human race. And it's taken many forms throughout the millennia. And nowadays, it's like I said, it's a lot of it is commercialized, a lot of it is trivialized. It's considered, that's a big problem with the perception of furry fandom. A lot of people still think cartoons are for kiddies, and if you put more material, more mature material into that, there's somehow something wrong with it. And I think that's something that the furry community is still fighting against. That you can still have the metaphor of anthropomorphic beings and tell sophisticated stories with them. I think the best example of that would be BoJack Horseman. I mean, that was a huge mainstream success, and it was all about a world in which anthro animals and human beings coexisted, which is like perfect furry fantasy for a lot of people.
Or like Fritz the cat.
Oh, yeah.
No, that's a terrible example.
No, that's great. I like Fritz the cat. I thought Fritz the cat.
I love
See, the thing about Fritz the cat is that it wasn't afraid to. It was like, in a way, it was making fun of itself. Like, yes, there we go. Although the original, that was very coincidental. Although the original comic artist, he was not a big fan of Ralph Bakshi and what Ralph.
No, yeah, because he thought that it like butchered the meaning of Fritz being too cynical and anti-hippie. So yeah,
that's interesting. I wonder if he thinks. Yeah.
He was using Crumb's material to tell his own story, and I think that was a betrayal of what Crumb's doing. Crumb was the first guy I can think of who used funny animals, which is like the precursor of furries, anthro animals, to tell adult stories. And a lot of his stuff was very sophisticated, like Fritz or like some of the shorter one-page things he did. And to me, he's a very important guy in terms of the foundation of the furry fandom. However, you can go further back, and I sent you some of those pictures too, I think, Lev.
Let me take a look.
Ever hear the Tijuana Bibles? These were like little porny things, little porny comic books from back in like the 30s and 40s. There's one, I may have sent it to you. Donald Duck has a universal desire, and his universal desire is to get laid. So the strip is all about him trying to find a girlfriend, and he winds up with a, quote, fairy, because it's better than nothing, in his opinion. The fairy was Gladstone Gander, you know, the characters from the comic strip. I think I also sent you a panel of Mickey and, let me see, was it Mickey and Minnie? They were caught in flagrante by Donald. I think, so like I say, looking at anthro animals, looking cartoon animals in adult terms, is something that is not all that recent, but it's still something that's considered, you know, by a lot of people to be capital W wrong. And,
okay, I have a question about that because I'm not an animal person. I've never been an animal person, and so I have never even understood like the interest of pets and animals in general. And so I don't really understand the draw of anthropomorphism. Like, if I already am not an animal person, why do I like now want to become an animal, which I don't really like in the first one? I mean,
well, what about Mickey
I don't
Mouse?
know how to ask that question.
What about like Mickey Mouse and other cartoons and things like that? Like,
I mean,
have you ever had a fantasy about becoming one of these cartoon characters you watch on the screen?
No, I always had a problem with costumes and I just never,
that's
you
fine.
know,
I mean,
I don't know. It's just kind of like, that's why I guess maybe I have a hard time asking questions about the anthropomorphism part specifically, because I don't understand. I'm not going to eat. My grandmother hated animals. My mother they just never liked animals.
Well, we have
if you could ask one question about anthropomorphism, you got a lot of people here who are familiar with it. What would you like to ask?
I think I just want to ask, like, what is the, like, okay, so, like, I see people that, like, literally, like, love their pets, like, they're part of the family. And I'm not really sure. Yeah, like, but I know there's a lot of people like that. Like, I just don't understand it, because I have kids, and the kids, I want them out of my house as soon as they turn 18. Like, I don't want to have a thing like, you know, I have no problem with birthing the children. Yeah, but they have to go. Like, I just, maybe it's just like a me thing, but I just never understood like how you can, I know that the animals are important. I'm not saying that, but me personally, like, I don't understand like the concept of like, I guess being able to communicate with animals in such a way that they provide some sort of feedback loop. I mean, what is the, I guess the interest in animals as how they relate to humans, because I see them as distinct, you know, like, but it seems like a lot of people who are into the animal thing, they see them as equals. And so maybe that's the question, like, how do you classify that? Are animals equals, Are they distinct? Are they lower? Are they higher beings? Like, you know, how would you discuss that?
Well, it's different for a lot of people. I mean, people who have pets and treat them like their children, it's filling a void for them. But I think that's like a different realm from anthropomorphism and from furry. Furry with the artwork and with the fursuits, you get the chance to become somebody else. You know, it's like being an actor, being a performer, and you can put on the suit. And like somebody was saying earlier, whatever inhibitions, you're not that comfortable talking to people, all of a sudden you're this other being who's free-spirited, open, and accessible, and curious about people, and self-confident and not self-conscious. And you know, there are a lot of ways to do that. It's not just in terms of the furry world. People have other hobbies, have other communities. They can feel like they're part of something bigger. But for whatever reasons, and I say it's for animals are a metaphor for ourselves. And yeah, a lot of ways they're similar to us. They're different from us. But I think there's, and I think I said this before also, there's sort of an alienation in modern world to being human and being alienated from the natural world way back when, before there was, you know, all this urbanity, urban society, and you know,
the modern world.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. People lived closer to animals, and they saw them closer, and they could see how animals were different and similar to themselves, and that's what's been lost. And I think that's something that furry, I always put a capital F when I talk about, you know, the community or the idea of anthropomorphism. I think that's something that people are instinctively trying to recapture. And a lot of people are doing it via the furry community, via creating art of their characters, or becoming their characters through their fursuiting. And it connects them with something really basic that missing in the rest of their lives. Now, nobody says you have to like animals, you have to like people who treat their animals like their children, or you have to like furs. I mean, it's a big world out there. And the only thing I would ask is that you respect people who are different from you, have different interests from you. That's all I would say.
Yeah, see, that's I think that's what you're getting at is what, you know, what we were talking about before with animal becomings. It's not exactly pretending to be an animal as such. It's the becoming. It's the in between an animal and human. It's the non-human animal. And so, like, for example, there was this great book by Jacques Derrida, the French post-structuralist. It was called, I forget what it was called, but it basically kicked off like animal studies in academia, where he talks about like this example of the cat like that he has. And it's like the cat, when he's like changing in his room, it comes in, and you're sort of like, you act as if the cat is like another human, and it's catching you off guard being naked, and it's like you have this modesty, but then it's like that's placing an anthropomorphic attribute onto your pet, and it's really weird because it sort of scrambles that relationship between what is the non-human animal and what is the human, right? But of course, like the difference being is that, you know, animals, they can't experience a sense of temporality the way that humans do and so forth. And but the point being is that there still is these moments of in-betweenness that are largely shut off from us within like hyper rationalistic scientific modernity and urbanization. There's still those sort of moments of animality, I guess you could call it, that in some ways, like my most sympathetic interpretation towards furries would be they're trying to get towards that in a sense with like an aesthetic. And I do agree with my friend. It is, I think, a unique aesthetic, but through the aesthetic, through the virtuality of an aesthetic, you can get towards some form of actuality. But I don't know, because someone on Twitter left me a very good comment about is it escapism, is it infantilization, but also can the furries achieve a genuine community that can transcend sort of a lot of the the connotations of furrydom being like just an aesthetic or just a fetish or just something. Like, can it grow into something else? Of course, like the person that follows me had a more brutal like question, but yeah, I'm basically trying to summarize it nicely. So yeah.
Well, this goes back to, I think, the more metaphysical things that, like Hotep Sophia, you are all about getting more to the root of your community, the things that connects you to your family, and the things that connect your children to yourself. This is something that I think is very inherent in a lot of people, but there are also times when people want to go off and see if there is something that's going on inside that they want to let out, like this furry identity stand or whatever you want to call it. And what I'm curious about here is, if we don't have these mystery school traditions anymore that are based on things that are much more having to do with the earth, or going through rituals where, like, I know certain mystery school rituals, they recreated the feeling of dying, that you are dead and then you rise back to life, and here you are with your brothers and sisters in this, remade, basically.
I think what Joe said made sense too, that, wanting to reconnect with the world, the actual earth, and the animals are a part of that. And so I could definitely understand, using the whole furry culture as if that's like your strong thing that you want to reconnect with. My thing is history. So I'm always looking at the history, what was happened.
Hello?
Hello?
That's me, but it seems like a lot of the furries want to connect. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, who was that
Yeah.
to say hello?
You cut,
okay.
You cut out for a moment
Oh,
there.
it was me. It seemed like a lot of or
Cut
you
off
can
for a
correct
sec.
me if I'm wrong, a lot of the furries are trying to reconnect with that animalistic nature that is inherent in all of us, because you guys just have a strong draw to that, which, I mean, yeah, that's a parallel that makes sense to me, if that's true.
Well, one thing, how I would describe it is, like say you're someone who likes to play RPGs, or they like to cosplay as a specific character. Essentially, what being a furry is it is cosplay. But you're cosplaying as your own character, and yeah, it is an idealized version. And there have been things, I forget the exact list, but there are certain stereotypes even in the furry community about certain species, like one species acts like this, one species acts like this, etc. And one comment I wanted to make it earlier, but I didn't get a chance to, about the whole sexual aspect. People forget one of the core rules of the internet. Everything is sexualized on the internet.
Yes.
Literally
yes.
everything.
Rule
So
34.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So singling out one specific community is a bit silly in that regard. When you think
even
about
the things that are meant to not be sexualized in the end have some sort of like metaphysical fetishistic nature to it. I don't know. Like, I kind of question like a lot of it. Like, I mean, that feel one no trad cottagecore GF, I guess, is sort of like another, like, it's like a non-sexual sexualization. It's weird. But
So it's getting a bit late here, and my internet may cut out. So before I just disappear, and I'm going to tie into what Rin has said, is this cosplaying of a personal character. My question would be for the furries here, is the character an idealization, or like a sort of anti-idealization of yourself, of your personality? That's for each person here that's been invited onto the stream. Second question is, has anyone noticed whether the characters that are created in this case are sort of, do they come from within, or do we move towards the character, in case this is an ideal, or in case this is an anti-ideal? In my case, I have created several characters, and they have, for the most part, been an anti-ideal, a sort of when it comes to these characters, these online personas, they have been something to move away from, something to keep an eye on. And I believe that in this case, it's really important, and I think that the conversation might be a bit more interesting if we focus on creating characters, aesthetics of certain characters, how they behave, and whether we want them to behave in certain ways, whether this is good or not. And if we have examples. Now, for me, it's too late, and I could go on for hours and hours regarding this. But I'd like to ask the guests here to try and dispel this for me, because it's something that I've personally been also struggling with, and the way that I've been approaching it, as I said, moving away from the anti-ideal.
Is my mic working? 'Cause I want
Yes,
to answer this.
Kenner.
Yes,
And
it is, Kenner.
please, can you please introduce yourself? You are a newcomer here. Kenner the opossum, and I love opossums. They're all over the backyard, and they're really cute, and it's a shame that they don't live for a long time. That's, you know...
Also, you don't see any of them, hardly any in the fandom either.
Really?
There's a ton of them now. I don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
there's a huge resurgency of possums right now. It's great.
Yeah.
Yes.
There are trends in the furry community.
Yes.
Yeah, so Kenner, go
So
for
I
it.
don't know anything about this mic, so forgive me if I
No,
sound
no,
like,
it sounds great. It sounds
crap.
perfect.
All right, so like I'd say half and half there, because like there's a lot of people where like their character is just like this embodiment of something they like, I don't know, want to be or get off to. But some people just make like a goofy ass character that just matches their personality, really. I mean, I wouldn't say that everyone's got like this goal they're going towards, like, because like I know people that like even the act of sex isn't sexual for them. They don't do it at all. They just get off to ideas and stuff. Like, I mean, literal ideas is all they do.
But see, that's the very interesting thing for me, because a lot less millennials are having sex today, yet they're much more on the internet looking at porn. I don't know how many are gooning. I mean, no, I'm not going to get into the gooning. I promise. Okay. Anyway, what I want to get...
Please, not...
Okay.
Please,
Gooning
one
question.
episode.
Okay.
Without the gooning.
Okay.
Please, Lev.
Okay.
One episode.
What I wanted to get here is... I want to see if there is a way that we could bring back among the furry community a similar tribal ritualistic practice like we were talking about before, where someone would be able to go from a point where, let's say, they are, they have less responsibility and then they have more, where if there's a point like growing up, where, like we have the bar mitzvah, for example, the Jews have the bar mitzvah. There's a certain point where a boy becomes a man and all that. So this is something that I think has been taken away from a lot of people, this point where you get to another level where it feels like, well, I mean, look, I'm still a really big fan of Sonic the Hedgehog and all that, like I said to everybody before. I still think that there is among a lot of people today a lack of satisfaction that I think could be gone through the furry community and brought back into it if it's not in there already, which I want to get to. But like this lack of satisfaction, I think, comes from there not really being a place where you can defend somebody from the impending hordes. There not being a place where you can put your life on the line and prove to somebody, prove to like your community that you have what it takes, that you're brave enough and strong enough to be able to do something that would make that community, protected and whole. And I think people are always reaching out to it. I think this is what empowers a lot of people to adopt a lot of different identities, because I think everybody is searching for, how do I become a superhero? How do I become somebody who would be able to make a big difference in life? But it seems to all go through this pop culture monotony, like with a lot of the superhero movies, where I don't think it's the genuine article. And I think all people are striving to that through all these various ways, whether it's being a furry or whether it's, whatever. The point is that, can we bring that element back so that people can be empowered to be like that guy from Seven Samurai? Joe, have you seen Seven Samurai? Kira Kurosawa?
Million years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you remember that guy who was really cowardly? Like he always wanted to hide whenever the thieves were coming in here. And you remember that scene, not to spoil it for everybody, but don't listen to this if you haven't seen Seven Samurai yet. But there was a scene where he was able to defend the village, and when he was knifed by the thieves, he had a smile on his face, because for once in his life, he was able to, get over this fear that he has. And I think that this is a process that I would most welcome for not just the furries. I mean, I know that this is a furry stream, but I would just want to say for anybody who listens to things that they find to be harmful or toxic or hateful, or, things having to do with the president or yada, 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 I think...
Or degenerate?
Yeah, any of that stuff. I think people can transmute that energy into being a better member of their community, to helping out their community, and to raising a family, having kids, taking care of other kids, like, adopting kids, taking care of them, whatever, just making a better life and being somebody who is able to give back. Because in that process, and I think this is also a Kabbalistic process of transmuting, not selfishness, but transmuting like wanting to receive into the spirit of wanting to give. And I know, sure, like furries, like they hug all the time, they're very loving, and I get that, and it's a beautiful thing. But it almost feels like the free hugs, like they have these people who like, yeah, free hug. It almost feels like it's a placeholder. At least I see it as a placeholder for wanting to get something more, for wanting to actually contribute way more than just the hugs, than just the dancing, than just having fun. Because I think we have enough fun. We have the internet, for God's sake, like we have enough ways to have fun, and I think people are mired in fun. And I think the more people are mired in fun, and the more people are mired in like, this is my community, I'm going to exclude everybody else, this is my safe space, the harder it's going to be. And the stronger they're going to feel where they hear something that they don't want to hear. So I don't know, Maru, I would love for, if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, so I'd like to point out that you're bringing a group of marginalized people into a Zoom call and then asking them intimate questions about their sexualities and lifestyles, and then asking them to be less fragile. That seems to be a pretty large request of us here. And largely, I think that the furry community is that for people. It's a place where they don't have to be fragile. It's a place where a touch-starved person can get a free hug if they want one. It's a place where younger folks can go and have advocates speak for them and give them places where they can exist in fursuit and be safe, while also at the same convention, the hypersexual people can have a community and acceptance and outreach and do their thing safely. It's really, I would say the furry fandom is designed to be a safe space for us. And, of course, there are there are breaches of that safe space, but we as a community are extremely vigilant about that. And we're always trying to provide spaces for people to be able to be themselves safely. So
I want to be real clear. I mentioned one thing quickly. I want to be real clear. I mentioned not one thing at all about sexuality when I was talking. When I was talking, sure, I basically made the point that there should be a transmutation of a lot of this energy, of the free hugs and all that, into imbuing it into the community at large, which maybe it's already happening, but it almost seems like there is this other level that these same people who are in the furry community can attain to, where it feels like it's been robbed of a lot of millennials. Economically, it's been robbed of a lot of us. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes with the Federal Reserve and all that. Like, things are not great for a lot of people. I understand that, but I almost want to see if there is a way to forget all the sexual comments and all that, just in terms of taking the same energy and applying it to being a citizen that, of the United States, of whatever state you happen to live in, that at the end of the day, when you're going to be at your grave, when it's going to be over, and you're going to come out of that, and you're going to go into the pearly gates or whatever, and they're going to ask you, what did you do with your life? You had the opportunity to be born as a human being. What did you do with your life? I think the most important thing is, what can we contribute to other people? And I think it does go into building a better society, not just on the internet. The internet's a part of it, but going out of the internet and being able to have conversations with people that may not agree with you, but at the same time, not being someone who is only insulated by the people who are only going to say the things that make them feel good, but be able to go out there and become just a better person by doing the shadow work, by confronting all the things that are in your way and growing stronger and making everybody else grow stronger.
So there is a lot of shame associated, at least for me, there was a lot of inward shame towards the furry fandom brought about by people's perception of it. It's funny that you talk about the pearly gates, because the thing that made me want to go to my first furry event was thinking, fuck it, I'm going to die someday. I would like to hug a fursuiter. And without that, I have brought so many people into my life who have helped me become the person that I am.
That's great.
Honestly, that their contribution to my life is immeasurable. And honestly, like I think society as a whole is going through some shit right now. And you've talked about don't we have enough fun? And for a lot of us, queer people, trans people, poor people, people who exist on the internet, people who are bullied and marginalized, like, no, we don't have enough fun. I think this is a place for us to
But is there
like,
satisfaction? What about building a garden? What about making something outside? Like, not to say that people don't do that, but it feels like there are so many other things that could be added on top of this that aren't fun but are satisfying. I see a lot of fun. I don't see enough satisfaction.
I think our lives
I would
outside of the
like to-
fandom already are accomplishing that, though. Like,
Yeah.
we don't need to make that also part of this thing we're using to escape our shitty lives.
But see, like, shitty lives, that's what I want to change. I want to figure out a way for people not to have shitty lives, but to have satisfying lives where there is
Lev, I
yes.
think what you mean, like, what you mean, Lev, I think what you're trying to say is more so the inherent problems with, like, any sort of escapism in general, rather than just, like, specific to furries.
No,
or
it's not specific to furries. But it is an important thing that I think should be
brought up.
But
it's just that, the furry is more of, like, a more overt, I guess, manifestation of what a lot of modern alienation. And what are we alienated from? Like, that's always going to be a perennial question, right?
Yeah, like,
one thing I'd say is, like, at least when it comes to me as a fursuiter, obviously this doesn't apply to everyone, but one thing that's always great is when you see the smiles on people's faces when they see you and they're like, oh, you're so adorable. Can I get a picture with you, etc.
Mhm.
And, like, I've had a lot of people say to me, like, they were scared of furries, but because I'm not the kind of fursuiter who keeps quiet, I talk regularly with and without my head. So a lot of them feel a lot more comfortable approaching me, and they're like, wow, I thought furries were scary. But yeah, a lot of people get that enjoyment of what's sort of like for, making people smile, making people happy,
Mhm.
and it's what a lot of us get. We feel good after it.
Oh yeah, people in Pittsburgh, people just love us when we show up for Anthrocon. People bring their kids downtown to have their pictures taken with the fursuiters, and the fursuiters ham it up. They love, making people happy. And I think that's a real contribution to society right now. People need some happiness, especially right this second.
Yeah.
And it's too bad we can't get together for the convention until this whole virus thing is taken care of. But we can do it as best we can virtually through things like this. But absolutely, and like I said before, putting on that suit is so liberating. It is takes you away from the weight of just being in this world right now and having to deal with who you are. Now, maybe, Lev, you think that's like an escape, or that energy should be put into something like more constructive, more, giving to society. And maybe the furry thing is a way for people to reach that part of themselves, as opposed to a way of hiding from it. This is real small. This sounds like tokenism, but every furry convention has an animal-related charity. And it's a local charity, and they raise a lot of money for, like, a animal shelter or animal protection, and
tens of thousands of dollars, like,
yeah,
lots and lots of money.
Yeah, so that's symbolic of how we, the furry community, can give back to the rest of the world.
That's great.
So, as a closing statement, I'd like to address what's it called? The idea that there is too much fun in the fandom. There's a lot to be there's a lot to be said about this, but I would like to close it off with chapter 5. I think it is chapter 5 of the book of Ecclesiastes, in which we learn that the fruits of our labor are there to distract us from the ugliness of the world, which we cannot change. So while I believe that it cannot be pure and vapid fun, I believe that it is fun, and it is a distraction and an escape from the world, which is well deserved. And I think that even through that fun and through that enlightenment, there can be something that's meaningful, and that's all.
That's a very interesting and beautifully said point. And it's important to find a balance between being able to have fun like that. And, otherwise it's not just this very stoic life that we're living where we're constantly working on the land and, writing our programming or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I
Yeah.
think another thing that Marcus Aurelius has said is that prayers should be simple and prayers should be straightforward. If they're complex, there's no use in them. So in some case, again, this is an aesthetic. It's not standardized for everyone. It can mean another thing, and if there is fun to be had, I believe that it is important to have fun. My personal motto is live, laugh, love. I'm a live, laugh, love nationalist,
Right.
and I believe that
Oh my
live, laugh,
God.
love nationalism should be upheld anywhere, in any space. And if you don't live, if you don't love, if you don't laugh, what is the point of persisting in this milieu of dread?
No, that
Yeah,
is.
but it has to be a serious laughter, as Nietzsche said. It has to be a deeper
Exactly.
laughter,
Very
I guess.
serious. Another thing, one last thing is, I have been asked by an acquaintance, because I'm going. He wishes to replace me.
Sure.
So if I could get an invite link.
It's the same link.
I'm
It's the
signing
same
off.
link that I sent you. So
I got you.
excellent.
I got you. I'm
Yes.
signing off. I hope everyone has fun. I think that everyone should be fair to each other, that we're creating a different sort of environment here, and that we're approaching from two sides. I think that a neutral ground must be met. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. That's all.
Hey, thank you so much. It's really great listening to you. Thank you for being part of this.
Definitely.
Please come again. Please.
Yes. And by the way,
Thank you. It had been hard to
I
overcome the
will if I
language
find
barrier.
time. I have paperwork to handle tomorrow, so yeah, have fun.
and I
guys.
love your
Good
accent,
luck.
by the way. You have a beautiful Serbian accent.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
And guys, don't forget to subscribe. Ignore the chat. If you think the chat is too toxic or whatever, ignore the chat. They're gonna say whatever they're gonna say. And look, all people are different. This is the fucking internet. Whatever. Anyway, so don't forget to subscribe once again.
Lev, just
It's
own
the
it. Don't worry
YouTube
about
comment
it.
section.
Yes.
No one reads it.
See, I thought nobody reads it. Apparently, I was wrong, because we did have one of the people coming out of this, and they were not too happy with what was going on in the chat. But again, it's just, yes, it is one of those things where it's like, I don't want people to be affected that way. Like, I want people to have a good time and to know, like, sure, there's going to be some people shit posting, and that shouldn't get you down. But it does get to some people. Like, I think, like Mario, you were talking about, it does affect people. And I wish there was a way it wouldn't, and I really do blame the media. I do blame the fucking media for getting people in such a state where this would affect them. And I do believe that there are ways of people to be able to withstand it. I mean, I know I'm kind of a broken record about it. But anyway, one other thing that I wanted to touch on with the tribal aspect, and we are going to have Hermes Thurston come in here, who has a lot more esoteric knowledge than I think even I do when it comes to a lot of this stuff, is the actual spiritual realm. And I'm probably going to save it until Hermes comes here. But when it comes to various thought forms that people end up seeing, like elves, fairies, jinn, I'm not too familiar with what the furry equivalents of those are, as far as various thought forms like gods. I know that there are Hindu gods that represent themselves as a lion man, and I don't remember what else. I think a horseman as well, Kalki.
There's also the Egyptian gods and several different creatures from Greek mythology.
So, Joe,
some of them are represented in the furry fandom.
Can you touch
Well,
on
in Gilgamesh, his best friend was a
bull.
dog man.
Oh, a dog man. I thought it was a bull. But Joe, would you like to touch on this spiritual god aspect of these anthropomorphized gods that people keep seeing time and time again?
Well, one of the earliest fictional characters is Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, in Japanese culture, not Chinese, I'm never quite sure. And in India, he becomes Hanuman, who's also an anthropomorphic monkey. And one archetype I really love is the trickster. The trickster shows up in so many cultures around the planet. It could be a rabbit, coyote, even a spider. And trickster is sort of like the court jester of the animal world. And
it was Chinese, by the way.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It just offended like a youth part. Thank you for that. And so again, these characters represent like escape and liberation for us. They can do things that we can't. So we can sort of vicariously experience it through those characters. And yeah, somebody mentioned the Egyptian gods, the animal-headed gods, and they all represented different emotions, different powers, different ways of looking at the world. So that, like I was saying before, this is stuff that has been sort of vanquished from modern society. And in a certain, maybe in a tangential way, furry is trying to connect itself back to those emotions, back to those values. You know, we may not worship Sobek or
Oh, says you.
Yeah, but we can.
Anubis.
Well, if somebody out there is good, more power to them. Absolutely. But again, if you can't become an Egyptian god, you can become a wolf or an eagle or a Komodo dragon, which I do from time to time.
Let me post that. Oh, I can't post it. This is what happens when your computer does this mandatory update. My laptop is doing a mandatory update, otherwise it would post it. But your character is named, what was his name? Como.
As in Komodo dragon.
And you have a copyright there, or let's say I could.
No, you know, I mean, maybe I could, you know, but I don't think anybody wants to steal him. But the thing about Komos is he is an aspect of myself that wouldn't have a chance to exist without him, because, you know, I'm fairly easygoing and, you know, whatever, friendly, funny, whatever. But when I put on that suit, I become so evil and so powerful. And it is such a liberation from who I am, you know, and not that I have to keep myself in check, but there is a part of me that really enjoys getting out and, you know, spreading his scaly arms and having a good time. And that's something that furry allows me to do.
A lot of the people that I shared that image of you with, they really loved it. They thought that it was really well designed, and the term for that is scaly, right? When it comes to
yes. Although scalies do come under the furry umbrella, so there is not a separate scaly fandom. But
what about avians? What about birds?
Well, I don't know if there's any avian fandom either, but you see.
I heard recently there was something about that.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that birds just fall under general furry.
Yeah,
I might be wrong.
Oh no, all these anthropomorphic animals.
Yeah, they all fall under it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got to say, I've seen some gorgeous bird suits, some really beautiful works of art. The suits in general are just amazing pieces of art, of folk art, if you want to put it that way. So many talented people doing these things, and they give everyone a chance to become something else, just for the weekend or the convention or.
And that quality is usually why they end up costing so much as well.
Yeah, they do cost a few, absolutely, because they're handmade.
Yeah, exactly.
Raw materials. So.
Oh, by the way, we have somebody new here. So
yeah,
welcome. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm definitely not going to be as insightful as Eisen, but I will try to do my best.
Thank you so much for being here. And what's your social, by the way? Is it at Kosiak?
It's at just take that. Actually, you know what? Oh crap! I can probably just put it in.
Yeah, you put it in there.
Chat.
Yes, and I saw. Oh, yes, put it in the BTR chat. I would display that on the screen, but unfortunately, my computer is restarting. My laptop, rather, is restarting right now. Those awful Windows updates. Why do they do this? Why do they just no, it doesn't matter what you're doing. We're just gonna restart your computer, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh yeah, I was doing sim racing a while ago, and I had a low disk space, just absolutely full black my screen, and while I'm in the middle of racing, I'm just like, why?
And guess how much the percentage is right now since the chat disappeared. 24%. That's all.
Bruh.
That's all. 24%. But anyway, let me see over here.
It'd be fun.
Just hope it doesn't go to 20.
Yes. So you were in the chat earlier on, and
yeah, I was having a little bit of a debacle, just tiny bit.
Interesting. But I'm so glad that you.
It's not at all toxic.
Bruh, and I can already see.
Oh,
these
this is
people.
gonna be spicy, Lav. This is gonna be spicy.
Yeah, I can already see these people in the chat being extremely toxic. Very funny.
What's up, dog?
But again,
I'm Vincent right away.
Okay, but Kosiak, you're used to it. You don't really take.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is internet bullshit, and
yeah,
I feel really bad. I do feel really bad for people who do take it, close to heart. And it's these are anonymous people that you're never gonna meet in your life, and they're create a straw man of certain things that they are not in favor of, and I think that's great. I don't know about you, Joe. I am for free speech, and I love having this conversation, and I love at the same time having the
there's
chat
sincerity behind trolling.
Exactly.
That's the thing, though. There's sincerity there.
That's the trick right there. If we have a community, my concern is in any community, be it furry, be it non-furry, the sincerity aspect, you don't want to make other people like, forget even furries, like think of like the Council on Foreign Relations. Joe, if you were a member of the Council on Foreign Relations and somebody were to propose some kind of this is our 2021 agenda habitat plan for humanity or whatever, and it would involve a lot of things that would potentially enslave people to the mark of the beast crypto system, that they would have chips in their forearms and the top of their heads, and you would be like, shit.
RFIDs.
Exactly. You'd be like, shit, this is a bad idea, but I don't want to make all these people in my circle feel bad. Like, what if I become the odd man out? And that, to me, it's like, it's not a criticism of furries at all. It's more of a criticism of any kind of community where, like, if you are afraid of hurting the feelings of somebody who is within that community, what do? You know what I mean? Like, how are you able to talk about these things? This is why I think, like, 4chan is so important, because they're anonymous and they just talk you know exactly what they think.
I think that's a bad example, Lev. That's maybe
you know what I mean?
I mean, there are furry subcultures on 4chan.
True.
They
true.
Yeah.
do definitely exist,
Mhm.
but it's mostly in trash though.
It's a matter of politics. I mean, you can be really insulting and, well, you're full of shit, you know, or you can, well, you know, that's an interesting idea. What if we, you know, blah, 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 tweak it a bit. And that's the way to go about it. You know, there's a whole range in between just acquiescing, going along, or just, you know, putting your foot down and saying no. So that's the kind of thing that you have to do. When I'm writing a letter to somebody or an email or something, and I want to ask something of them, I always try and find language that isn't confrontational, isn't trying to put them on the spot. And that can be tricky sometimes, you know, like somebody was like working on a costume thing for me, and, you know, nothing had been happening, and I didn't want, hey, where's my thing? You know, and so I just, you know, wrote him the other day, and I say, hey, how are things going, et cetera, and I'm working on something here that blah, 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 that hopefully will, you know, jog his memory. Hey, I was doing this thing for Joe, without saying, where's my thing? And that's like kind of politics doesn't necessarily have to be headbutting, but it can just be having some, you know, this is what they say about political correctness. Oh, sometimes political correctness is just respecting other people. And that's something I think people who really hung up on your PC, you're not DC, forget about. So that's something that I try and do. I try, not always successful, to not be arrogant and not confront and not put people on the spot.
And that's a very important
quality. Do you all think
that?
But do you all think? I guess. Do you think it's just like the casualties of meme culture? Like, apart from like the furries that have done like legitimately disgusting and abominable things, do you think it's more of just like a meme thing to like view furries a certain way? Is that more of what, like, the legit reality of it? Do you think it's just like the meme aspect of it that really gets people going?
There's that, and then there's, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people, you know, they see furries as them, and all they have to do is talk to a furry, and they realize, oh, they're not that different. They just like to dress in this particular type of costume.
Yeah,
well, that's also a huge misconception that being a furry means you wear a fursuit.
Yeah.
I get asked that so many times. I'm just like, no, I don't have one.
Yeah, maybe only about 25%, maybe even 30% people actually suit up. The rest of the folks, they will just access their character or appreciate furry characters through artwork, or they'll wear a tail to the convention.
Yeah, because it's expensive.
Well,
it is. It is definitely.
You can easily spend over, you know, over $1,000, over $2,000 if you want to get a really top level
with air conditioning, right? There's air conditioning in some of those.
That's what
no.
That's the justification
That's
have for the amount of money that those things cost.
Oh, wow.
I don't think there's
Look at that.
something essentially wrong with
Here, let me make
investing in your
the
happiness.
Screen bigger. There we go. Look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
is very warm inside there.
Wow.
That is thinking.
That is thinking outside the box.
I'm kidding.
I really want you to be wearing that suit and take a photo with William Shatner.
Oh God! Good Lord!
Oh man! But
he'll tell me to get a life.
But like Joe, like you are such a great guy, and like we've known each other, like I said at the beginning of the show, for a very long time. And as far as like getting the most out of today's discourse, there's always going to be like, I am totally with you when it comes to being polite and courteous and expressing certain discontentments in the best way possible so that everything is civil. I cannot expect that to happen of the people who are going to be in the chat. I really can't. I don't have power as far as like I can say like I don't approve of them saying things that are hurtful to people. I keep saying that all the time. But other than that, I think that element is always going to remain there for any kind of conversation where it's going to be not so much patting oneself on the back, but it is going to be talking about a lot of deep shit. There's always going to be these people that come out of the woodwork. And I say that respectfully, these people, these people, they have been tremendous with us from the very beginning. They've been supporting us. They're the people who have helped us grow. And they do have certain discontentments, and they raise their online voices through the chat in saying things that would be considered toxic to other people. But at the same time, that is where I say, let all that fly, and I just wish, and I'm not going to say it anymore because I know I'm a fucking broken record about it, that my only wish is to be able to get everybody to be empowered enough in their own community and their own lives to be able to treat it just like a fly that's landed on your shoulder and then go somewhere else. And I know it's easier said than done. And again, I blame the fucking media. I blame the way that we were raised. I blame society. I blame the fucking boomers. And no offense, Joe. I blame all these...
I blame the boomers.
No, Joe's yes, all these elements that I think have made us a lot more susceptible to... And sure, you could say, like, if people are saying, like, kill yourself, or so, that's fucking horrible. There would be no way that I would ever advocate for a horrible thing like that to say to anybody. And again, one of the rules of this community here that I'm building, at least in Zoom, is no threats against anybody. And don't say you get it. You know what I'm talking about. But it's like the rest. It's always going to be chaos, and it's only the beginning. Like, what I want to talk about now, and I want to bring Hermes Thurston into this conversation, what I want to talk about right now is what lies ahead, not just for, for the furry community. What lies ahead for the furry community in virtual reality, in being able to not even have to go outside anymore, no more hugs, but now you're not even in the fursuit. You are in glasses, in the fursuit in VR, hanging out with other furries in VR. Post-COVID, I assume people are starting to get into that. But what do you see happening down the line when all these various sensors get better, where there's not really going to be that much of a differentiation between the real world and this virtual one, where, like, what is that society going to look like? Like, Joe...
Hyper-reality, Lev. Hyper-reality.
People were doing that 12 years before COVID, with Second Life.
Oh, man, I forgot about Second Life.
That is true. Second Life does exist.
But see, Second Life, I gotta say, it was kind of MySpacey, in the sense that a lot of the backgrounds that people put in there, they weren't great interior designers by any means. Like the colors.
It looks even better than btr-chat.
Well, okay.
I remember one joke.
Okay.
I remember when I always tell this story, but Lev on the show, but
go for it.
When I was a kid, I watched this program. I was at my grandparents', and it was this like public access Ontario science show. I forget what it was called, but this was when Second Life first came out, and they thought like normal people thought that it was going to be this glorious sort of techno futurism where and there was like universities getting involved in it and everything. But then, of course, like people,
the internet touched it.
The internet touched it, exactly, and the sort of the global id of the internet was released, and now people view Second Life as like shut-ins and very eccentric people, to put it kindly. But it's sort of funny how this building of a virtual world, in terms of like a physical avatar instead of like the consumer model that we get, a lot of the internet pioneers, they truly believe that they were going to create like whole worlds on the internet where people can like physically engage, rather virtually physically engage. Whereas nowadays it's like point and click. It's not, the same experience. But it seems that a lot of these like online communities, whether it's furries or anime or whatnot, it seems that they're bringing back this like, you know, Californian tech utopianism where now you can physically interact with people on the internet through an avatar, which I find is kind of like
And soon
strangely
we will have
fascinating in
gloves
a way.
for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we had on Pika Petey, who was dressed in a whole Shiba Inu outfit. Like, Joe, I don't know if you know Pika Petey or not, but he had a
Nope.
very interesting not Pikachu, it reminds me of Pikachu. He had a very interesting Shiba Inu suit on where he could move around his fingers, his arms, he can, you know, shake his butt. He's very fond of shaking his butt. But anyway, this I see as being the future. But like you wrote a little bit about this in your book as well. Is there anything you want to add onto certain Nostradamus? Because you are older and wiser than all of us here. So I mean,
Older than about the wiser part.
I mean,
Careful.
Yes. Do you have?
Add on to,
Yes.
on what subject?
Predictions for what you see happening down the road with the furries when it comes to virtual reality, when it comes to being in this very immersive world, but strapped into these devices that would then, you know, possibly exclude people from more adventures in the fursuit or just interacting with people out in the open.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, there may be some people who would want to live inside that virtual reality and keep that Oculus on all the time. But I think
it's very difficult.
Right, you get the eye strain or just your headache of having
Mostly
that.
dizziness.
I'm sorry?
Mostly dizziness and pain from when I accidentally punch a wall.
Oh, God.
Oh
yeah.
God.
Yeah, I went to a VR demo once and put this thing on, and I was like trying to scuba dive and going deeper and deeper, and I was getting dizzy. It really totally fools the brain. But I think it's going to be, you know, I don't know if it's going to add to other escapes or take time away from them. You know, so maybe if you've got the VR goggles on, you'll spend that much time less watching TV or, you know, binging on a show. I'm sure for some people they would love just to do nothing but that, go from one diversion to another. But no, I just see it as every time a new medium comes along, the old medium thinks they're in trouble. You know, TV comes along and the movie theaters think, oh, we're dead, and nope. And then cable TV comes along and the broadcast networks think they're dead. And then streaming comes along and you know, so it's just an evolution. And it's not so much the stuff is going to replace what comes previously, but I think it's going to sort of weave in and gradually become more prevalent as the older media maybe isn't as you know, present as it was in its heyday.
My
So like having a fursuit would be like owning vinyl, like if you're into music.
Imagine.
Oh wow,
that's a strange reality.
You'll
Well,
keep
no,
it in
I-
these special
On your
freezers.
fursuit, we use the robots.
I don't know. I'd like to say that I don't think VR will ever replace fursuiting, and I don't think VR is ever going to replace reality either. I mean,
Nah, it's not gonna.
yeah.
It's a fun
Thank God.
distraction,
You see,
From an artist's perspective as well, I think the fact that there are a lot of people now getting into 3D modeling as well to serve that sort of commission base, and that stuff's a lot cheaper than fursuit. So it's probably going to be like it's kind of like light fursuiting, where it's more accessible to some people, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, VR headsets probably like what $500, and the 3D model.
600, I think.
600, something like that, and then the 3D model commission is about 200, probably something like that, and that's $800 instead of the probably like 2,000 that you pay
800.
for a high quality
Yeah.
fursuit.
Well, I have to admit, I've been waiting for years for a virtual reality where I can put on those goggles and see myself reflected in a virtual mirror as Komos or as some other animal I'd like to be. And that to me would be a huge thrill. And now it's happening. Now it's for real. And as much as I know I'd enjoy that, after a while, okay, that's enough of that. Let me take these things off, you know?
well
Let
now,
me get back at the real me.
well
Joe,
now,
do you think? Sorry, Lev, just really quickly. While the VR situation wouldn't replace the sort of IRL experience as you've kind of discussed, to what extent do you think that the online space, insofar as in a furry context, addresses the sort of existential issue of the alienation that I think earlier you were discussing the furry suit sort of helps one to embody? Like, does it begin to approach that, or is it strictly a sort of fun thing to do? Whereas even though the fursuit is not the end all be all, it becomes that real embodiment. Where do you see this sort of the give and take there, if there is indeed any?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
great question.
No, I mean, actually, wearing the fursuit to an actual convention is more of a real experience. You know, you are in an actual environment, not in an imaginary 3D environment. But like you were saying, or someone was saying, it's a lot less expensive to have a avatar of yourself made to step into in the VR world than to have a really nice fursuit put together. So I think it's, I would say it's probably well, I don't know, I was going to say secondary, but it really may be just two sides of the same coin.
And one thing I will say, at least with how the technology is right now, because I've logged probably over 50 hours in VR through various games.
Cool.
You still got that weird bit of like, oh, I'm touching something, but there's nothing actually there. There's only very specific things that really get you immersive to where your brain goes, oh, this is real.
Yeah, I guess because you don't have any sense of touch if you have VR goggles on. Yeah, you're going to have move your hands around, and then you can see your virtual hands in front of you. And yeah, I've seen that. You know, you have these controllers sometimes, and if you put on the goggles, you see just like a pair of hands floating there working the goggles. So that's as close as you can get to actual tactile experience in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
But what happens when, let's say, we have Elon Musk's Neuralink coming in, and that is something that's going to directly hijack your brain, so that eventually get to the point where you don't need any silly mask or any gloves or anything like that.
Then we have Sword Art Online.
I've never
Don't
played
threaten
it.
people with a good time.
Well, that will be the ultimate. DCS will be the ultimate form of entertainment, that, which I'm sure nobody has ever heard of because I just made it up, direct cerebral stimulation. And if Elon Musk wants to come up with that, I'm willing to give it a shot. I'll tell you that, as long as I can take the thing off, you know, as long as it doesn't take my brain out of my head and put it in a computer.
Are you saying Elon Musk is gonna like control your brain or whatever?
I hope not.
Like a wire heading idea, or like the movie Existence, where there's like a literal brain port.
Oh God, is this how the Matrix starts?
Well,
Yeah,
what do you mean
go.
starts? What do you mean starts? It's already started. It started a long time ago, and we're in it right now. I mean, look at us. We're talking through this Zoom conference, and who knows how many different influences we got. I mean, this is why I brought up in the very beginning the influence of Disney's Nine Old Men to the creation of the archetypical furry design that I think, like Rin, yours is sort of close to that. So the handiwork that's responsible for the sly-looking smile, for the furrowed eyebrows, for the schnoz, all of that is based on Disney's Nine Old Men, the creations that they did with Robin Hood, like I was mentioning before, and others. So when it comes to where exactly the identity of the person starts and the identity that they are informed by starts, this is something that I want to bring back to flat design. So I talked before, Maru, you remember this, I was talking about flat design in the beginning, like in the pre-show. For those who don't know what flat design is, I mean, like Gio, how would you describe it?
The aesthetic of modernity and late capitalism. No, sorry, that's a thesis I'm writing. Flat design is, well, you mean the humans of flat design.
Yes.
But basically, it's rendering down various like illusions to depth and design features that mimic things in the real world into very like basic shapes and cartoony exaggerated features that are ever present within modern design all over the internet, all over everywhere. And it's very like cheap and easy and universal and multicultural. And it seems to be like the current aesthetic of the current like web 2.0 is like flat design. So all things are rendered into just basic like flat shapes, and the human subject itself is like very very disproportionate and cartoony and flat, and there's no depth to it. So yeah.
And I'm going to post an example for those of us who are not aware of what the flat design looks like.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you must have seen these in other places. So if you pay attention to the screen over here, you will see this is what the flat design looks like. And this is just one example of that. So
God, I hate that crap. Okay, so I know Eisen is also an artist, but I don't know if you mentioned it, but I am an artist as well. So this shit bothers me very much.
I'm an artist.
I hate how this looks. It's so awful.
Well, and
Yeah.
and you resonate with the fact that like
it comes out of like it's a natural expression of like a lot of modernism, but
Yeah,
it's more
exactly.
it's not even modern. It's not even postmodern. It's just blah.
It's like as the years have gone on, I've seen it transform and like push itself into companies' logos more and more, and I'm just like, oh my god.
and see, like, I'm about to say one other very controversial thing. Please forgive me. You know me. You know that I'm trying to be as nice as I possibly can be with all of this. But here it goes. My one pet peeve is that I do see, and I know, Kenner, you have a pink thing going here, but it's not the same. It's actually more punk rock. But I see a lot of very pastel, like very pink and purple, like a lot of these colors that are around, and it's like, I don't know, aesthetically, it reminds me of not even the new My Little Pony, but like the old My Little Pony, like the one from the... Joe, you're familiar with that. Like, you know, just like...
It's the millennial post-Tumblr, like a pastel aesthetic.
Yeah. Like,
it's in the art world as well, by the way, which really annoys
Cal
me.
art.
But...
Yeah, Cal Arts. Let's get that Cal Arts shit, bro. Oh my god.
It's because we're gay.
Oh,
It's literally just because we're like gay or
I'm
trans.
not gonna.
stuff.
I want to say facts, but I don't want to either.
No, but on a
There's
serious
facts
note,
behind why we have colored hair.
but on a serious note, do you think that comes from what do they call that? The queer the camp aesthetic. Do you think it comes from camp? Is that like a natural evolution of it?
What?
You know what I'm talking.
well, camp
you know
is kind of like JoJo. I think JoJo's got a lot of camp aesthetic and a lot of these
You mean like
over the
big
top.
anime hair?
Not exactly just the anime hair, but they wear a lot of jewelry. They wear a lot of this weird-looking bling. I'm talking about the JoJo characters. But in a way, they kind of have fun with it, where they're being ironic. You know, they're not taking themselves so seriously. But it's like where there are certain aesthetic choices that people make, and they take it very seriously, like it's their baby. And if anybody criticizes any of these choices, then it's like they're attacking them in a very visceral level. And it's like. It's almost like there is this rulership over the minds of people, where people are afraid for saying, you know what, this is a strange looking color choice, or this is a strange looking aesthetic. I'm not particularly fond of that aesthetic, like you do you, but it almost feels like certain aesthetics are made to almost be safeguards so that it's very difficult to kind of critique. And I think it's easier to critique, let's say, architecture, for instance, where somebody would do architecture with a bad aesthetic and people would call that out. Not amongst the architects, of course, because they're all in their same circle, but amongst the regular public. They would say, no, this is bad architecture. But it's like when it comes to color choices and aesthetic like that, it also denotes something for me. And I don't think it's a matter of gay or lesbian or whatever, because, like, let's say somebody like Socrates, he was gay, but he was also a general, and he was, like, doing a lot of very interesting things in the field of philosophy that have been passed through Plato to this day. And Plato too, he was gay, whatever. I mean, I can name 1,000 million examples of people who are gay. Oscar Wilde, fucking genius writer. It doesn't matter. The point is that they had, even though Oscar Wilde, he did have a fun, campy aesthetic to him, there was a certain sense of class to the way that it was all presented and put together. And I wonder, aesthetically speaking, if there is a way to reach out and see, like, maybe certain aesthetic choices in a friendly and outgoing way could possibly be challenged. But I'm only reacting to it from a guttural perspective as like, oh man, this is like so many pink fluffy things like in the hair or whatever, and all these little pink spots that they're putting on this poor panda, and it's like, it's too cutesy. It's too, you know what I mean?
So like,
it'll be a passing thing, just like a million other styles. It'll be popular for X number of months or year and a half, and then the next thing will come along.
Well,
There is like a.
dude, the reason these characters are like colorful and shit is because like these people spent their whole lives just being sheltered inside their houses and crap, and they're like, oh, I like bright colors because I had to wear all this bullshit or whatever. Like, they just like the colors. It's like, I'm not saying all gay people have like pastel hair and shit. I'm saying people like it because they like it, and it's a way to express themselves.
Here's the example that I found. Know your history or be doomed to repeat.
Oh God, Jesus Christ.
So it's not even about bright colors or that, you know, like people can have bright colors or whatever. It's more of like there seems to be a certain like this punk aesthetic. Punk, what was punk doing? It was going against the establishment, but a lot of the establishment was made up of, like, you could call it boring or whatever, but
that was all kayfabe, Lev. That didn't happen.
Okay, but it was still
they bought
okay,
out.
but it was still made up of sacred geometry. So let's take, for example, a lot of the statues that are being were being torn down during the riots. That is also an example of, like, you take a statue, you tear it down, you tear down the statue, which was made of all this beautiful sacred geometry, all those puffy outfits that they wore, and all these columns and all of this stuff that's, like, you know, standing on the shoulders of giants here. And what do you replace it with? You replace it with all this bright, colorful graffiti. So in a way, it's like there isn't a measuring up.
It did something like that with with a deer statue that was set on fire, and they replaced it with something. They replaced it with something that looked like it was just cobbled together with whatever they could find lying around.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing that I'm trying to get to here, where it's not a criticism of any particular color choice per se, but it's more of the combination of a lot of things that people choose to have as, like, the banner that they are going to fight under. And it seems like this banner, it is more in the spirit of chaos than in the spirit of order. And I'm welcoming anybody to disagree or to add in anything else they want to the conversation.
I think what Kenner said made sense, though, because if you have people where you're sort of like, you know, school uniforms and you're condemned to this, like, here's a lot of dark blue, you know, pants and light blue, then once you do have the choice to choose your own thing, you are going to go super colorful. I mean, the first color of my dreads was this bright orange. I mean, this was when nobody was even, like, had dreads in 2004. Like, my hair was so bright, it was just outrageous, actually. And nobody had done it before. And so I didn't even see, nobody had dreads, and definitely nobody had super bright hair. But now everybody, you know, their hair is like gray. I mean, it's just like, or super bright blue or whatever. But, you know, it's just like it's like an independence thing. Like, once you are able to make your own choices for yourself in spaces where you feel comfortable, you're going to go with, you know, whatever you've been sort of dreaming about your whole life. Like, I always wish I could have X color hair or whatever, like, or I always wish I could, you know, wear these bright, colorful clothes. And I guess if you're going to pay for a costume, it better be what you always wanted, because it sounds like these things are expensive.
Yeah. It's kind of the same as the this thing you see a lot with homeschool kids, when their life is so structured and regimented, and the moment they get any taste of freedom, they just immediately go to the extremes. Meanwhile, you have someone who hasn't been under that system, and when they reach the same age, that are, you know, not gonna run off into one extreme or another. They're not gonna go drink a lot, or they're not gonna go smoke everything.
I was homeschooled actually since 6th grade. That is it was an interesting experience. Like, I was not a fan of a lot of this regimented structure, but it wasn't because I didn't like structure. I didn't like their structure.
It's not that. It's just if you don't have that outlet, when you eventually, it bottles up, and once you do get that outlet, and don't really know how to control it.
No, that's
I
fair enough.
homeschool my kids, and we have zero structure, so it'll be interesting to see how different my kids are from Lev, because we have, I mean, in my house, if my oldest daughter gets up before 10 o'clock, I'm like celebrating. Her class doesn't start until like 10:30, and so literally at like 10:10, she's like up trying to jump in the shower so she can, like, be in front of the computer at 10:30. So I think it also depends on, like, the type of person who is doing the schooling and how much they believe in traditional educational structure, which I don't believe in it at all. So here is a very diverse way of thinking. So it'll be,
I mean, look,
interesting to see how that works out.
like I used to date a girl who loved coloring her hair in different colors. So I saw Jules wrote, when I went to the premiere of my film, The Vigilante, shout out to Jules, by the way. Jules is coming back. Right now, Jules is just working a lot, so he's not able to attend a lot of these events. But I want to give Jules my full power right now in the work that he's doing. But anyway, I dated a girl with pink hair, and, she also had a lot of...
Oh, red flag, Len.
Well,
Red flag
she
right
also had a
there.
lot of... Well, first her hair was purple. Then her hair was orange, like Misty from Pokemon. And that's when we did mushrooms together in the park, and that was a lot of fun. She even had a similar, she even had a similar hairstyle to Misty's, actually. But anyway, then her hair was red.
Changed every 30 seconds.
Wait, what?
I don't.
Wait.
I'm sorry.
I didn't get that. Wait,
The color changed.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
it changed as you did more shrooms.
Yes. Oh man, no.
And then it started growing. It started turning into snakes. It was weird.
No, unfortunately, the color didn't change, but there was a golden squirrel that we saw. It was like a shiny Pokemon that we saw in the park.
Cool.
So that was actually, this park. It was Tompkins Square Park. Joe, I'm sure you've visited Tompkins Square Park quite a bit. It's a beautiful park. But anyway, and then she had red hair. But what I do remember is that she was very much like, sometimes there was too much of a free spirit, in the sense that she was always going into, very like, I mean, look, I don't want to talk about people, when they're not there, but basically suffice it to say is that I think this is an example of chaos when there is not that much structure in somebody. And you're right, like Kenner, what you were talking about, with Rin, what you were talking about, like when you were in this very rigid environment, of course you're gonna go out and go free and do all this kind of stuff. But finding the right balance here, I think this is the key. I think this is why, like the Amish, for example, they have that whole thing that the teenagers do, where they go out and then they party and then they have a choice. Do I return to the traditional Amish lifestyle, or do I forever sever myself from that and become just like a regular Joe? And a lot of them end up coming back to the Amish lifestyle because there may be something that, when you are connected, whether you're connected as a furry to your community, they're connected to their community that they grew up in, being Amish, being around the land and all that. And what makes me wonder, again, going back to this idea of responsibility, is that when all the colored hair and the statue destroying and the graffiti, like when we see all of that being represented, how much is that a lack of this kind of balance where they weren't able to have a structure that maybe wasn't so rigid, but at the same time allowed them to achieve a sense of satisfaction? Like, I know we are very much in the weeds here, but I would love for anybody, if you want to touch on that point, because it does bring us back to this idea of, could we introduce this even more to an extent within furry communities or other fandoms to reignite that same fire inside their belly, like North Dog was talking about earlier.
Wait, do you think that the furry fandom should stop people from destroying racist statues? Like, are you seriously
this is a different conversation, because if we're talking about what these statues are exactly, I don't really want to get into that right now, because we're gonna be here. Well, here's the thing. Like, you are saying,
here we go.
You are
Here we go.
You are saying that outright.
Question marks.
As the agent of chaos, and I get that, because again, we're always going to have this order chaos dichotomy where things are going to be filtered through this lens, and I think we are living at a time of chaos right now, the Kali Yuga. From the people who I've talked to, we're going in the Kali Yuga right now. We're not even in the main course. We're just at the aperitif. So I think we are going to be seeing a lot more of this.
You have to explain that to me. I never heard that expression. Kali Yuga?
Kali Yuga. Yes, so...
Yeah. What is that?
I will tell you right now. So...
I mean...
I have
in the Hindu cosmology...
I like the walking...
yes.
away from...
No, I had to walk away because I have this on my phone. I was reading it today on the Wikipedia entry of let me just find it right now. And by the way, while I'm doing this, all new people,
it means in the Hindu cosmology, it's the multiple time period of decay and fall before there's a great rebirth.
Exactly.
Because time is cyclical in Hinduism.
And you have some people who want to accelerate it and some people who are trying to slow it down.
So yeah,
anyone who has read
for example,
any history knows that history is just a circle. It's not a line, it is a circle.
Yeah, it's the basic idea of decay.
You ever hear the expression history?
Well, listen, I think that's.
Oh, yeah, Joe?
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Joe.
History doesn't repeat itself, but sometimes it rhymes.
Well, here, okay, over here I have a passage from The Reign of Quantity by René Guénon. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I like this little monkey with the tongue. That's cute. So it says over here, in The Reign of Quantity...
But you really want to open up some worms right now.
No, but I think this is this is kind of part of the course. In The Reign of Quantity, Guénon sees history in terms of the... And again, as far as any other things that he writes, I have not delved deep enough to say whether I agree or disagree. This is a proposition, and by no means am I saying this is exactly as it is. But anyway, he is saying, in The Reign of Quantity, Guénon sees history in terms of the Hindu conception of the Manvantara, the cycle of manifestation composed of gold, silver, bronze, and iron ages. This cycle is an inevitable descent from the pole of essence, or forma, towards the pole of substance, or materia. Essence is qualitative while substance is quantitative. As the cycle progresses or descends, the very nature of time and space changes. In earlier stages, time is relatively eternal. As the cycle moves on, however, time begins to take over and accelerate. But this constant acceleration of time can't go on forever. The time, the devourer, ends by devouring itself. At the end of time, time will be changed into space again. This ultimate timeless point is simultaneously the end of manifestation and the beginning of the next. Before this ultimate transformation in the later days of the present cycle, certain final developments must take place. Since quantity has particularly to do with matter, the reign of quantity must also be the reign of materialism. The age of miracle ceases, the world becomes less permeable to the influence of the higher planes of reality. So that...
Yeah, so to bring that to the chat, it's almost as if we can no longer connect with the perennial sort of animality of the spirit. Now we're just left to wearing fursuits in the age of matter. That would be a good comparison.
Maru, we can't hear you. I think your mic is mute.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the subject currently is Sparkle Dogs are an agent of Kali. I think that's pretty...
I thought it would be a horseman, though, because Kalki is supposed to be a horse-headed god, or someone who rides on top of the horse, like a manifestation of Vishnu riding on top of the horse to bring about the Satya Yuga, or the Age of Truth, or the Golden Age, or whatever you want to call it. Because if we take a look at a lot of these mystery cults, and this is what I want to bring in Hermes into this conversation for as well. If we look at a lot of these mystery cults, they talk about opening up, piercing the veil that we hide from ourselves through, I think, Plato's allegory of the cave points that out quite well. We see these shadows, be them dancing furries or whatever, we see the shadows of these animals or people dancing around, and we interpret that as the real world, while behind them, the primordialness, which is something that I think was manifested in a lot of these mystery traditions that also had a lot of these anthropomorphic animals in them. It talks about a greater truth. It talks about behind these shadows there is fire. But this fire itself is light, and this light is the pure essence out of which all of us are these separate fragments that nonetheless belong to a whole. So when I see you, Maru, what I see is a version of myself that was born in this particular environment, and whatever reincarnations you had experienced before led you to wherever you are right now, with the people who are in your life, with the environment that is in your life. And the question that I raised before to you and to Joe and to everybody else is like, how do we go from here? What do we do to make the most of this embodied reality? Well, with the mystery schools, what they wanted to do is get people through the experience of dying and being reborn so that they understand there is more to life than continuing the cycle of being attached to certain worldly things. And that, I think, also comes to, like, I know that maybe I was overly critical with the comment concerning, there's too much fun going on. But the fun in this case, I would cement together with this idea of attachment. And I do personally discriminate between different levels of this fun, where you could have an experience that's very pleasant. That's something that you do that also fills you with something more than just dopamine, but it fills you with something that's going to last not just that day, not just that moment, but that's going to last, for your entire lifetime. Like, having moments like that is important, I think.
What exactly
I'd like to speak to this really quickly. Sorry.
Go for it.
So you'll remember in the allegory of the cave, when the people turned around, they were at first blinded by this light and turned away from it because it was too strong and too beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that relates to the furry fandom specifically, at least to me, in that, like, early, the desire was to hide the true nature of the self, to turn away from the community, to turn away from the community, to turn away from the found family aspects of it. And it was through accepting that way I've accepting the truth that I am a individual in transit from the cradle to the grave, and let's have fun. I mean, maybe this is some Nihilisa Frank speaking, but, like, why don't we just party and dress up like animals rather than,
It seems like a lot of these modern like LARP movements, it seems there's some kind of latent Gnosticism to it in a lot of ways. I don't know. It just seems that that's a very Gnostic way of putting, like, you enter their persona and that becomes this higher self. It just, I don't know.
Because I just don't know, even the persona, how many of these elements, and again, this is kind of a controversial statement, but how many of these elements are also all these spectral things that I mentioned that kind of just start to attach themselves to the self and end up being something the self thinks it is, like all these influences, whether it's Disney's Nine Old Men, whether it's certain other artistic trends that you've experienced over time. It's like these things just, like, attaching to you as, when you watch television, when you play video games. Like, I'm a big fan of Nights and Dreams and Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, I love Sonic the Hedgehog, and I think Sonic is also one of these things that's attached himself to my brain, and I can't let it go no matter how much I try. Princess Sally is there along for the ride as well. But the point is that I see in myself these experiences where, even though I like Sonic and it's fun, like, I know that there's something beyond the blue blur. And you're saying, like, the light is too bright. Well, it's a gradual process. It's not something that happens all at once, but through meditation, through breathing techniques, through various ways, I think that there is a way to get to a higher state within, where you would be able to see certain other things or experience certain other things that normally wouldn't really come about, because I think a lot of us are like candles in the wind. We're all just being blown here and there by various influences that we've grown up with since childhood.
I don't think we have to, like, spend this much effort, though, in forcing ourselves to make the thing we do for fun be like this deep thing where we have to accomplish something, because it's like, I don't know, dude, like, you're talking here about Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, I don't think you have to make this transcendental.
No, forget that. No,
it kind of feels like it kind of feels like thinking too much into it. Like, there's a point of where, man. Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
no, but it's not even about Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm not saying to transmute Sonic. I mean, you're welcome to try and transmute Sonic, but that's more of an example.
There's probably images of it.
Oh, I'm sure there is. You got to go fast, as in not eating for a long time. Got to go fast, and then you're going to be able to get the Kundalini to flow. Get it? But, yeah. No,
that's terrible.
What I'm saying here is that these are elements that we've attached ourselves, being millennials that grew up in a really cushy world of a lot of, pardon the pun, creature comforts.
I don't think you should assume anyone grew up cushy here.
I grew up in the USSR.
Oh, what?
I grew up in the USSR where my parents couldn't get toilet paper. Relative to that, a lot of Americans grew up in a really cushy environment. I mean, there's a whole gradient of cushiness here. So as far as the way that most Americans grew up, it is, relatively speaking, cushy to the way that my family grew up and I grew up when I was like really little back in the USSR. So yeah, like I would say, I'm sorry to generalize, but yeah.
I have a bit of perspective on this.
Go for it.
As I used to go to a therapist for anxiety issues, as I developed bipolar when in my early 20s. And one of the things I remember them telling me is about how, humans are, we all feel stress, but our bodies, in the last couple hundred years haven't adapted yet to the fact that, we're no longer on edge about things like our survival. And so stress then moves over to other things, more common things, and we end up experiencing more than we would have otherwise. And this is actually self-destructive. If you keep that much stress around, it does actually shorten your lifespan.
And that's what a lot of social media, I think, does over time, where if people are constantly exposed to all these different things that are going on in the world, like people used to live in just like these small villages where they'd go outside, oh, the birds are flying around, chirping away. I mean, sure, things were bad, like, death and childbirth and disease and things like that, but there was less things like, we don't know anything about foreign policy. I mean, most of us don't. Why the fuck are we making decisions about this?
The tiger was also a real threat and not just something that was abstract.
Exactly.
You had an actual.
That was the real fursuit. That was the real fursuit where you would skin the tiger and then put the tiger hide on, and then you would be the tiger. That was the original OG fursuit right there.
Oh no, I was talking about like an actual tiger, hunting a person.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That was an actual threat that you could connect to.
Yeah.
And without that direct connection, your brain drifts off to abstract things that you can't really escape from.
No, I completely agree, dude. Like that is the problem right now, where it's like if people are in these communities, and again, like God bless them. Like I really appreciate the fact that you guys are still here with us. Like Maru, you are amazing, and so are you, Rin, and so are you, Kenner, and so are you, Vincent, and so are you. Oh God, what is your? Hold on. Kosiak. Did I say that right? Kosiak. Kosak. Well, that's like the Russian.
It's Polish.
Interesting.
It's Polish.
Yeah, I may have some Polish ancestry myself because my surname is Polyakov. But anyway,
yeah.
Like I think what we're getting to here is like there is all this stress that is built up over time, like you said, through a lot of this online exposure to having to think about things that don't really matter in your neck of the woods. And I think that the one solution to that, again, is to be able to undergo certain rituals where the things that are going to be around you in life are going to be the genuine things that you are going to be responsible for and care about. And those will be the things beyond any other like internet relationships. I mean, internet relationships, sure, they can count. Like I feel real closeness to a lot of the people here. I don't take it for granted. But to be able to experience this on a very visceral, on a very human level, constantly, like with my family, for instance, like that is something that I hope everybody here would be able to experience in their own way, because we're not an island. We all need other people in our lives who will love us and be there for us and take care of us, and we'll take care of them in turn. Like I know it's kind of mushy what I'm getting to here. Somebody who was talking about not liking the pinks and the purple colors, but this is something that I'm really passionate about as well, to be able to like, how do we free ourselves from this fucking atomization process that's going on, where we can actually go back to more of an environment where we don't have these certain stressors that ignite us and just make us feel depressed and make us feel a certain way, where we're going to be able to utilize both the body and the mind in order to get the most out of this life. And I also see that process of meditation and breathing techniques as leading to that in its own way. Because through that process, you would be able to distance yourself more from things that shouldn't affect you as much, and you would be able to go more inside and see that everything that's being experienced right now, it's all changing, it's all going around, and it's more about what are you
Yeah,
able
but
to bring to the table.
Lev,
Yes.
no, Lev, I'm thinking about what you were talking about before about the cycles of time, and that's, to me, that like really breaks down every sort of political or cultural disagreement people have, is whether temporality is seen as like a line of progression or temporality is seen as a cycle. I think that it's related to like the way there seems to be in a lot of people, like I don't mean to I don't mean to like cast shade or whatever, but it seems that a lot of people have like an instinctual sort of encultured gut instinct against things like fursuits, because it's that like ancient sort of like separation between man and animal, and it's almost as if in modernity we're permitted to express animality within very like limited ways. And to me, I almost see furries as like a release valve for a lot of people that are sort of like permitted to express this very like aestheticized version of something much more like powerful or primordial or whatnot. I don't know if that's the case. Like, it just seems that it's like a high fructose corn syrup version of what once was. I don't know if that's a weird metaphor.
Well, I'd say one of the reasons why people, might feel uncomfortable about fursuits is, and I just had to look this up to make sure it was real, is masculophobia, the fear of mascots, and yeah, just that's an actual
there is
thing.
that. Yeah, there is, or like the fear of clowns. Like we like managed to pervert clowns.
I've got a lower level perhaps question
You got
for
juggalos.
For Joe. That's similar to what Lev was saying, in that could you describe, if you would, the feedback process that you get? Again, I know we're sort of drilling down specifically on the suit, but when you're sort of embodied with that, other than maybe becoming more outgoing and boisterous, are there other types of feedback that you bring into yourself from the suit? And then sort of from that perspective, given how long you've been in the community, I assume you've been in the community for a while, do you find that you're a much different person now than when you sort of first came across it? Because I if I'm understanding what Lev's getting at, and I think I am, it's that sort of transcendental impulse, but we begin that process at the lowest level by just experiencing a feedback loop with what we're engaged in. So could you describe that first, Joe, if you would, and then anyone else who would care to?
Well, I know that being in the furry community has really opened me up to a lot of experiences and opened me up to parts of myself that maybe I didn't want to engage directly in. And yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I wrote about it in Furry Nation. I had this experience, and it's very strange, but basically, and talking about shamanism, basically I put together a very kind of primitive alligator costume. And I went to some furs who had like a mud patch in their territory, and I immersed myself in it. I don't know why. It was just something I wanted to do. And the sensation of being part of the earth, of being part of the planet itself, and feeling the earth holding on to me like a lover, that was a transcendental experience. And I came out of that like transformed.
That's grounding. In fact,
Yeah,
I'm standing on the grounding mat right now.
Okay, well, this is definitely being halfway in the ground. And, after that, it just really changed my perspective around. I was really free of a lot of dead weight psychically up until that point. So I don't know if that relates to what you're talking about,
Absolutely.
but that's certainly a lot different from going to a convention and putting on Komos.
Well, you're being connected to something that connects all of us. Like when you go into the earth or lay on top of the earth, like I love laying on top of the grass, and I feel the entire weight of the earth supporting me like a mother, like in a way I am in the state of being in the womb. So it's like it's like stuff like that. Like I wish, for example, Joe, you can organize a whole thing. I'm serious about this. When we finally open up after COVID, you should organize an event where you have like this big mud pile and just get all the furs to take the fursuits off for a while and just to go into the mud and to feel their naked body connected with the earth. I don't know.
No, I'm not going to try to inflict my trip on other people. It's like Tommy, you know, he wanted everybody to go blind and deaf and play pinball. Everybody's got to find their own bliss. Okay, mine may not work for anyone else. But I was going to say that experience, I realized after that was a shamanistic ritual I instinctively created for myself and underwent a transformation.
No, that's what it's all about. I mean, this is kind of the point that I think I was trying to get to here, that we've been so separated, like we're in these boxes. I'm talking to a box, you know, I'm talking to like a rectangle, as it were, and we're in these boxes, which are our houses, and these boxes, which are our streets, and we're just like a box in a box in a box that's been separated from nature. And I think so much of also the kind of things that we eat, the kind of things that we consume, like our gut flora, like all of these elements have been manufactured by all these corporations that feed us all this crap all day. And this is something that also affects us. So it's like, if we're so separated from this environment, no wonder there are all these effects that people have over time, with depression, with feeling that like they're not good enough, with having all these voices in your head and all this horrible stuff that I want to prevent. Like, I really want, as strange as it sounds, with this weird ass stream that we do, where on one hand we're having this nice conversation here, and on the other hand we're having a lot of chaos going on in the chat. It's like, with this environment, I want this to be a therapeutic environment. I want this to be an environment that can inspire people to go beyond whatever mode they happen to be in, reconsider certain things, start maybe doing some breathing techniques, some meditation or whatever, buy a mindfold that completely blocks your eyes, but basically get to the point where you feel like the guy in Fight Club whose life was threatened, and he felt like, oh shit, I'm gonna die. And then when the gun finally got tucked away, Tyler Durden said, when that guy wakes up tomorrow, it's gonna be the best day of his life. He's going to wake up, he's going to eat the breakfast, it's going to be the most delicious breakfast he has ever eaten. Like, I don't know if there is a way to convey that more than I've been conveying it today, but like, regardless of whatever situation you happen to be in, or whatever community you're in, this is something that I wish for all the people who are listening to this, and for all the people who are part of this Zoom call right now. And that's all I want to say about that. Silence.
Speechless.
Lev, you are a gentleman.
Well, and the scholar, hopefully. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maru, I really feel bad about North Dog. I don't want him to feel bad. Like, I really respect the fact that he came on here, and I understand, like, he may be, you know, sensitive when it comes to a lot of these things. I mean, I'm sure, like, Vincent, like, you were fucking around with the chat thing before, but again, like, you didn't say anything to him, like, personally. Like, you were making observations about things that you've noticed in your own life, and it's like, I really don't want to get that in between having a good conversation. Like, Maru, I know that you know him personally, so, like, I hope that there would be a way this could be reconciled, just so that he knows that none of us have bad intentions, and that there are ways to go through this, and hopefully would come out. I really want to come out of this you know, in good spirits with him as well, because I owe a lot to him. He was the one who provided the image for the thumbnail, and it's a very beautiful image, and I'm really thankful for him for doing that. So, yeah, let me know, like, later on. I would love to get in touch and figure all that out.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for North, but you know, it's rough out there in the chat. That's how it be. You know, if you're gonna have a zone where you you know, advocate for free speech and don't moderate hate speech, then that's, you know, people are going to get their feelings hurt. It's
Well, one thing, maybe it's just because I'm almost 30, but something that I learned pretty early on with becoming a furry is it's easier to basically build off walls and, well, laugh at the people attacking you than it is to, you know, just get it away from all of them.
Yeah, pretty much. It's better to like, I guess, kind of like what you said, just kind of build off of it instead of let it tear you down, rather. Like I've had people, because if I set my profile picture like on Steam or something, I have my profile picture set to my persona, obviously, because it's the thing that I use to represent myself online. And I get these people, like when I would play Counter-Strike, for example, because that's a voice-enabled game. Like if there's voice chat, I would get people telling me to go kill myself, telling me to go suck a dog cock, something like that, fucking shit.
Oh god.
Hey, oh yeah, people would say that shit. People say that shit all the time because because all the misconceptions around furry.
I don't even think our chat got to that point. I think they were just doing They were doing casual observations of their feeling about the fandom in general and about
But just general people, they can be pretty wild, and it kind of as you experience it more and more.
The internet destroys people's filters.
Yeah, it kind of gets to a point where you expect the worst. Coming out of the gate, you already expect the worst.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, like you are the MVP. You were here for all this time, and I am so honored to have you here, brother, and for you to speak with us. And I know that, there may have been some, reservation, because this is a different community. It's not the furry community. This is the BTR community, where it's a bit of chaos and order and all of the above. Like, we want to be an open door for people to have these very intense conversations that go very deeply, that go all over the place, but at the same time talk to a certain truth that unites all of us together, and not be afraid to poke at certain things that may be under the curtain while doing it respectfully, at least in the Zoom chat, doing it respectfully. So
what do you mean poke at things under the curtain?
I mean, well, all the stuff that we were talking about before, all the things that people hold, like very kind of like cold as sacred cows, as it were. Anything, whatever opinions people may have, I'm not a fan of the sacred cows. I say, let's make steak out of the sacred cows. And
that cow is probably sacred to someone. How you expect that person to react if you're telling that person that the thing you believe in is sacred to you? Nah, let's cook it for dinner.
That's a very
defend shit you think is sacred then.
Yeah, it's a back and forth. It's a back and forth process where if you truly are that attached or, that close to a certain thing, then nothing would really shake you. You wouldn't have,
exactly.
Like you would be able to be not just resilient, but also anti-fragile. Like I keep using the word anti-fragile just because I think it's a very important word. And I highly recommend everybody to look up this book, Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. Highly recommend it. And hold on, I have no idea what. See, I'm doing in advance. I have no idea what this person's about to post on the chat, which is why I scrolled up. Let's see if my instincts. Oh no, it's fine. Okay. See, because I don't want people to post porn. That's the thing. Like if somebody posts porn in the chat, then I have to edit, and I don't want to edit this thing. Like I want it to be like the whole thing, the full Monty. Anyway, guys, I think this is pretty much it. I mean, the only thing we really didn't really touch on is animal-human hybrids. And I know, Joe, you wrote about this in the book as well.
Anne's going to be making them soon.
Yes. Let's touch on that a little bit.
We're going to CRISPR first. We're going to CRISPR furries, but for real.
Stop.
Oh, I know a lot of people would volunteer.
Oh, no.
Anyway, before we go, I got to find it again. Before we go, you were talking about the 9 old men.
Yes.
And this was like one of my favorite motivational, quote unquote, motivational things I found on the internet. And I'll just hold up my laptop to the screen.
All right, gonna present it. Hold on. Here we go. Oh, nice.
Let me
yeah.
Yeah, fair.
It's true.
So,
that's a fair point.
So, if you want to blame someone for furries existing, blame Walt.
Well, you blame Walt for a lot of things, so it's not within the realm of impossibility. We can definitely blame him for that too.
Or thank him.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Walt was the first fur, and he spread as far as he could.
Based.
By the way, Amansat, who said Sarah Jessica Parker, that's a reply to, do you think any furries would CRISPR themselves out of being human? Oh, I guess that's holding up her, the horse face. I don't know. God bless Sarah Jessica Parker. She's above all that. Like that's somebody, by the way, who's probably very anti-fragile. She's probably gotten those comments, thousands of times. So anyway,
Sex in the City ruined a whole generation of Gen X women. Okay, there you go.
Now I'm trying to think. Was it Sarah Jessica Parker? There was a Broadway play about this guy who adopts a dog off the street. The dog was played by an actress, who actually had a conversation with him and his wife, who didn't like the dog coming into their relationship. And I'm trying to remember if it was Sarah Jessica Parker or some other. It was some actress with 3 names. That's the thing I remember. So that's like pretty far into the furry world right there.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when she was in that movie with John Travolta, but now we're really going into the weeds. All right, guys, I think this is pretty much it. I would love for everybody to come back. You guys are all amazing, and we are not going to have a free-for-all Friday this week just because, oh, man, I didn't drink any water this whole time. My water ran out.
Oh, no.
Okay, anyway, we are going to, I can't even speak anymore. We are going to have a National Arts Club live stream event, because I'm also the host of the I'm also the chair of the Art and Technology Committee at the National Arts Club. We're going to have a National Arts Club event coming up on tomorrow with amazing musician Spree Wilson. That's happening at 4 o'clock. And Gio, are we going to have another Art Slam happening this Sunday?
Yes. Maybe I
Excellent.
will paint a furry. Who knows?
Yes.
We'll see.
Yes. Excellent. All right.
Paint Luna.
Well, any final thoughts? I know we stopped doing final thoughts, but since you guys are all new here, let's start with, let's just go down the road. So let's start with Joe Strike. Short, any final thoughts on the experience? Did you have fun? Learn anything? Whatever.
It was very stimulating, absolutely. Had a good time.
That's great to know. I'm happy you had a good time. Maru. And by the way, Maru, that's like there was a Japanese restaurant I went to called, what does Maru mean?
It means circle in Japanese.
Yeah, circle or stone,
Nice.
I believe.
Or like money, or it's a
You can also
suffix
stone.
that's added after stuff. It's
Something like
a fun
that, yeah.
shift. Yeah, it's
It's
got a lot
also,
of different meanings.
It's also that cat that likes going in the box. I remember it.
I was Maru before that cat was Maru. That's all I'm saying.
stole your name, yeah.
Yeah. My final thoughts is thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, and praise Baphomet. Have a great night, everybody.
Have a great night.
Oh,
You should have been here.
disavow.
You should have been here for the
Oh.
Satanism stream. We had a Satanism stream earlier on. Okay, next, let's go to Rin.
I had a pretty good time, so it was pretty fun. I definitely what was it? The Ono thing that I was saved because that's freaking adorable. And praise the Lord of the internet, Slanesh.
Now we got Slaanesh, so we got Baphomet, we got Slaanesh. Let's see who's next. Hotep Sophia, are you gonna name any deity here?
I'll try not to. I had a great time with you guys. I learned a lot about the culture, and luckily I was already a blank slate, so I can just take this information now and pass it along to people when they bring it up, so that hopefully we'll have better encounters with uninformed people as opposed to so much negativity. So I definitely appreciate the positivity on the stream today.
Namaste. And Kenner, Killer Kenner.
Thanks for having me. Fuck God, hail Satan, ACAB. See you guys.
That's so
later.
many. What's going on, Gio? What's going on? It's
Do you
all,
mean
it's,
furries are Satanists? Oh my god!
Not surprised.
No,
Question
we're
marks.
Slaneshi worshippers.
We worship the beast, of course.
the beast, yes. All right, Vincent.
Thanks for everything, and obviously thanks, Lev. I respect you a lot. I'm super grateful for every opportunity you've had to, or I've had to be on this show. I just wanted to say that since this is final thoughts, I can just kind of say what I wanted to say, right?
Sure, yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh man. We got
I'm not gonna say
Kosiak
anything
afterwards just
mean.
to
I'm not going to say anything mean. I promise. I mean, I just want to say, I think that it says a lot when you try to reject or quell conversations about things that you find displeasing or disfavorable when they're relevant to the particular discussion at hand. And I really wanted to talk about things in the stream or in the call that I just did not feel comfortable doing so, because I knew how it would be received. I knew how it would be reacted to. And I respect Lev, and I respect Jules, and I respect this podcast way too much to do that shit. But at the same time, I felt, it was a little soft.
It's all a balancing act. It's all a balancing act. It's like
it definitely is.
if
I
any
think
if
people
anybody wants
expect internet blood sports, and that's
yeah, that's the thing. That's like this is what I told before. What I told North Dog, that I don't want this to be an internet blood sports type thing. I understand that there are people who get off on that whole energy, you know, like let's mock these people. But look, you guys are taking the time to come here, talking with us, and while I want there to be obviously anything brought up as far as any criticisms and all that, like I am all for that. At the same time, it's like I don't want people to be subject to things that they don't want to be subjected to. So it's like I'm very grateful that you came on here, and I hope that this resonates well with people and that they don't shell up, but then they're only gonna come out and well, this is going to bring us to Kasak, the way that you do it. So I hope more people can kind of imbue your energy, Kasak, and it's a very mellow looking character that you have, by the way, with that coffee. I like the eyes like that.
I got that a while ago. I like using that. I feel like it kind of displays how I feel about a lot of things, because that's kind of what my thoughts were coming on here. Like I appreciate that you let me come in as a replacement for Eisen, and I think that I think there was like I also kind of wanted to discuss those things that Vincent was talking about, but those things really didn't come up, and I know why they didn't come up.
By the way, here's the thing. Aman Sadhu is here. What if we do this? For the patrons, and I'm going to get some water, for the patrons, we are going to have an exclusive patron-only after-hour special, which is basically just this Zoom call. I'm going to send the Zoom address to the patrons. Just let me know who wants to come in. I'm just going to post it in Patreon, so anybody who could come in can come in. So for anybody who wants to keep doing it, this is the way that you can do it. And if you are not a patron yet, see, this is how I get the people to become patrons. If you're not a patron yet, just go to patreon.com.
Just shameless grip.
Yes. / break the rules with a 3. Become a patron. There are the links in the bottom there that you could see them. Become a patron, and you will see that link. I'm going to send that Zoom link shortly. Whoever just wants to hang around, just have a off-the-cuff after-hours talk about whatever. And that one, it's like, you guys could say whatever the fuck you want. I'm going to go away. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So that is like,
that's
it's
the
like,
blood sports.
Like, go at your own risk, because this is, like, I don't want anybody to be, you know, like, if you guys don't want to do it, then, you know, it's just purely like, if you want to stick around, if you want to go, I'm fine. Maybe you don't have time right now or whatever. Anyway,
Hey,
yeah.
If we're plugging our stuff, you never showed my book on camera.
Oh no. Okay, here we go. Yes, let's go to the book. Here we are,
Yep.
Furry Nation. Excellent.
Okay.
Oh, you got a mouse pad too. Can people buy the mouse pad as well?
Oh yeah, and I know I might sell them for the right price. Also, Komos made the cover of this British magazine. I was very happy about that.
Nice.
He's a mouse pad also.
Excellent.
You can see how dirty he is. I use this one all the time.
Oh man.
Oh yeah, I wanted to say praise God.
Oh
praise God as well.
Some counter energy there. And Hermes, let's not forget about Hermes Thurston.
God
Thank you so
bless.
much for coming in. Any final thoughts before we transition into the Patreon thing?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, of course, thank you for having me on. Likewise, I want to echo what Vincent said. I have great respect for you and Jules and the podcast. I'd like to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts, Joe, especially for some of your insights into the sort of more transcendental aspects of anthropomorphism and the furry community as a whole. I know I came in late into the stream, so I didn't quite catch everything, but I just want to thank everyone for being here as well. I apologize about my PFP not being there. I'm not sure what happened, but I'll try and get that for next time.
Okay, well, thank you.
Excellent. So I am writing the BTR After Hours stream right now. Once again, for those who are tuning in and want to stick around for that, just go to patreon.com/breaktherules, and we will see you there. So I am stopping the broadcast and also asking everybody, please subscribe, please subscribe, please subscribe. I love you all. You guys are all incredible. Mwah! Take care. Good night, everybody.